Let's see it.
2024 is the final battle. They're going after Trump, and if they can get Trump, it means they can get you, they can get me, they can get all of us. He is standing in the way, and that can sound like a campaign slogan, but it's very true. Now we're approaching the most important battle of our lives. Now, for the very first time in American history, a sitting president's DOJ has indicted his top political rival ahead of a presidential campaign. When they indicted me for nothing, I said, now the gloves are off. Now we have to say if I can see the crook. Now we're approaching the most important battle of our lives. If you fuck around with us, if you do something bad to us, we are going to do things to you that have never been done before.
Well, you told me you were drowning, I would not lend a hand. I've seen your face before, my friend, but I don't know if you know who I am. Well, I was there and I saw what you did. I saw it with my own two eyes, so you could wipe off that grin. I know where you've been. It's all been a pack of lies.
If you have a problem with someone, you have to go after them. And it's not necessarily to teach that person a lesson. It's to teach all of the people that are watching a lesson.
The last time we ever met, but I know the reason why you keep your silence.
When we get back in the White House, I will totally obliterate the deep state.
The hurt doesn't show, but the pain still grows. Some strangers to you and me. I can feel it coming in the air tonight. Oh Lord, and I've been waiting for this moment for all my life. Oh Lord.
When we get back power, I don't really want to have peace with these people who did this to us and are continuing to do this to us. We have to turn the tables on them, give them a dose of their own medicine, and then we can even the playing field, and then we can discuss unity.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Patriot Underground. Today is October 2nd, 2025. Thank you so much for joining me, folks, to discover the truth beneath the surface. As always, I really do appreciate everybody out there taking the time to listen. And tonight, I finally have the chance to welcome back my good friends, Mark and Dave, together on the same screen. It's been about 5 months since we've done a show together. Way, way too long. We all agree. Of course, I did a show with Dave it was probably like a month ago, and I had Mark on last Saturday, but it's been quite some time since the three of us have been together, and it's always a great conversation. So it's a pleasure to welcome you back, gentlemen. How you doing tonight?
Great to be here. Always great to be here with you.
Great to have you.
I'm doing well, man. It's been too long, and I believe the plan is to try to do this every other week. This way,
sure.
If life gets in the way and we have a postponement or a cancellation, we don't end up going another 5 months without doing a show together. Because I think when the three of us get together, it's certainly one of my favorite panels to do. So thanks for setting this up tonight.
Amen, brother. I completely agree. And certainly great to be back with both of you. Like I said, on the same screen. It's been 5 months, way, way too long. And just so folks know, this is something that it's, as Dave said, it's a favorite for all three of us. First time we did a show together, it was like we nailed it, and the audience absolutely loved it. And I'm absolutely thrilled that it's going to be a every other week type of a thing, so we can keep that pattern going for the benefit of everybody out there. So obviously there's a lot for us to discuss tonight, and indeed we're going to get into a lot of different subjects. But I mean, when I thought about putting the show together tonight, I was like, well, what are we going to get into? And I always like to start off the show nowadays with a bit of a 40,000 foot view type of a question, and talk a little bit about the big picture. I mean, here we are, another Red October. Can you believe it? 2025, it's Red October once again. And there are just so many things going on. The exposure operation is moving forward so quickly. So we're going to dig into a lot of different topics tonight. We're going to talk about Israel and some other subjects as well. But before we get there, I thought that I could pitch that question to you guys and have you sort of set the table. You know, how are you seeing the grand chessboard come together? Last week, I think it was Mark that I asked that question to. So I'm going to lead off with Dave tonight, and then we'll go to Mark, and we'll see what you guys are thinking about and whether or not we're on the same page. We usually are. So Dave, take it away.
Thanks, man. Well, I go back to something that you've always said, and for newer people might not know this, I always give credit to Patriot Underground as being somebody that when I was going through the depths of my awakening, he was one of the people that I listened to. And I think I don't remember when it started, but I remember at a certain point when things looked very hazy, you would make the statement, well, it doesn't, it's irrelevant of how things look right now. We're on the proper trajectory. The information war is on the right trajectory. And if I just kind of try to sit back and summarize a little bit of where we are, the bottom line is we're winning on every single front. But those of us that have been following this for a long time know that when you get to the point towards the precipice and winning on every front, that optically it's going to look a little ugly. It's going to look like what we're seeing right now. It's going to look like mass shootings, and we can get into which one of those are real and not real. It's going to look like there's unrest in the streets. It's going to look like there's potential unrest in the economy. It's going to look like, I don't know, a government shutdown and people not getting paid. These are the things, many of the things that aren't surprising any of us. It's going to look like Charlie Kirk. Leave that one right there for now. It's going to look like a lot of which is a lot of what, maybe not specifically, but a lot of what we expected. And part of that is kind of what we were talking about backstage, which is using these different operations, using the narrative control, the dark to light that's mentioned in the drops, which is on display everywhere right now, and using that to force the average person, everyone but that 4 to 6%, to take a look at what's actually happening on their television screen, the war playing out on their screen, and say, you know what, I really hate Trump, but I don't back that stuff. I'm not okay with that. And that's happening in mass right now. It's there's a lot of different directions we can go in tonight, which is why this is always fun. You mentioned Israel. I'll just touch on that quickly. I mean, we all know the famous drop, saving Israel for last. And I think it's important that we do highlight that tonight, because that, whether you're tired of hearing about it or not, is playing out in every possible direction right now. In fact, I showed it earlier on Rambo's Roundtable. That's a list of clips that I put together over the last 24 hours, and I didn't get to any of them today. Probably use them on Saturday. But I started looking. Let me see where the narrative space is going in terms of Israel, not just relation to Charlie Kirk, but it's almost like somebody hit go, and everyone is coming out of the woodwork from every possible, not just the usual suspects, not the ones that are considered the anti-Jew and all. No. Now it's actually coming out with intelligent conversation, making sure to separate the difference between, let's just paint everybody with a broad stroke, and focusing in especially on Netanyahu and their deep state government and how it relates to our government and their control. And it is ramping up. And again, it doesn't matter where you stand on the Charlie Kirk thing. I believe that was the impetus for it. It was like, that was, red team go. And since then it's been nonstop. And I have my eye right now just on a potential for more events of that level, a Charlie Kirk type of level. And again, whether they're real or not, that's up to everyone to decide. But I would expect that there's going to be things coming in the next few weeks to months. I don't know the time frame, and I don't want to put a time frame on it, but I wouldn't be surprised if there are more events that allow us to further advance that narrative and make it more obvious to people.
I couldn't agree more. Absolutely. And that's really the key with Israel. That's why we talk about it so much, is because we've always known that when we get into this season, like you just described, Dave, where everybody seems to be talking about Israel, and every event that happens is somehow woven in, whether it's Charlie Kirk, whether it's Tucker Carlson talking about censorship, whether it, with the TikTok deal. And we're going to get into all of this stuff tonight, but it's really difficult to isolate an issue that doesn't some way boomerang back into this grand conversation that started about Israel. And this, of course, heretofore was a completely taboo subject. This was the type of thing that if you even mildly criticized Israel, your career would be completely over. The entire establishment would come down on you. Now, certainly we're still seeing the optics of that play out to a certain degree. But the fact that this conversation is not only not going away, but it's being amplified and it's growing stronger with every passing day, to me, not only points to the importance of this concept of Israel being saved for last, but also the fact that times have changed so radically, and it's really proof positive that the white hats, that the good guys are in control behind the scenes, because this type of a conversation would never have legs, even a year ago. So I think that's a great place to start off tonight. So Mark, let's hear from you, buddy. I know I asked you for your 40,000 foot view just less than a week ago, but let's see what's changed. Every day, of course, we get like a month's worth of news. So,
well, that's the whole thing. You look at everything that's going on, and I do look at it from the MSM point of view, because they're making it so blatantly obvious in so many ways that even, I won't say even the most libtarded of the libtards would recognize it, but so many people are seeing what's going on. And it's so many people of the right generation that are starting to see what's going on, because, I don't know what you call the generation now that's the 18 to 24 demographic, but I know with my daughter's demographic and this and that and the other, who most of them are very libtarded, they're starting to get it. They're really starting to get it. And just from what Dave was talking about, you watch what's going on, and you can have, I won't say as much TDS as you want, but you can have TDS and look and say, oh, I might have TDS, but no, that's just not the way. So a lot of this is being looked at, and you had, BB come last week between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. He shows up, kind of makes pretty much so a fool of himself, and gets baited right along. And then, as it happens to fall, saving Israel for last, when does the government shut down? The beginning of the day of the beginning of Yom Kippur, which can lead into, I don't want to speculate, but could lead into 10 days. And a lot of things that are lending itself to moving towards a whole hell of a lot of revelations coming up in the next couple of weeks, but especially during the course of the month of October. I think this is the first time that we're actually going to see Red October. It's going to be an interesting time to be awake.
it stands to reason, right? Because there have been so many deltas, like 5-year deltas going back to 2018, that have been hit over the course of this year. And it seems like we're right in that zone, right? And we were talking about and again, like Dave said, we're not here to talk about timelines and expectations. I mean, I was actually the one, I put out a post because for me, after the Charlie Kirk thing happened and I normed for a couple of hours, I have to admit it, I did. I thought it was real at first. It was like the penny finally dropped, and I realized, every single time I get emotional and I start my analysis from that point, I'm always wrong. I always have to then backtrack, and I figure out, oh my gosh, I got I got fooled again. And for me, I that was a major turning point, as it turns out, in my own journey, because it's like that's how you get blackpilled. You have the expectation, you have the timeline of events that you think are going to happen, then you develop the emotional attachment to that. And then, of course, there's all of the optics and all of the psyops that go along with it, and things don't turn out the way you expected. And it's like a recipe, But anyway,
can I add to that? It's funny because I don't know, your audience probably hasn't even heard. I don't even know if Mark has heard my story. I'll be very quick about Charlie Kirk. So I was actually in the Dominican Republic when that happened, and I was with a big group of patriots, so all up on the news and everything, and we were in the pool, and somebody said, and one of my friends who kind of knows what I do for a living said, hey, did you hear that they just shot Charlie Kirk in the neck and he's not going to make it? And like I look, and there's like 5 people looking at me, and my initial reaction, I go, yeah, I don't think that's real.
Good for you.
And then somebody came over to me with the phone. They go, no, you got to look at this. And I took a quick look at it, and I'm like, from like a distance, and I was like, people are getting upset and everything. And for like a split second, I'm like, well, that kind of looked real. But again, it's not my phone. So I just took a walk down the beach. I had to walk back to my room. It was like, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, no. I'm like, something doesn't smell right about this. Like, I have a bad feeling. It like my gut, something's off. I'm like, just let it be. And I let it sit for a little while. And it was, then before we went to dinner, I got my phone, I looked at it again, and I started seeing angles, and I'm like, no, this is off. And what did it for me was sitting at dinner, I had 3 guys asking me, like, what do you think of this? Like, what happened? And one of them was in the military. And I said, well, do me a favor. I said, here, you look at that video. And I watched the 3 of them, and they look at it, and they look up at me, and they look at each other, and then they go, no. And the guy started breaking down. Now, let me show you the blood. And I was like, see, but, I think that got everyone for a split second, but it's just weird. I guess it was weird to me how my initial reaction right away when everyone's talking about something is, wait, no, that can't be. Probably not right. Yeah. And then for a second, I bought into it, and I'm like, nope, and that's the world we live in.
No, it's so true. It's so true. And it wasn't so much the footage that I thought that it's not like I had really analyzed it. I mean, I saw the far away shot. And then there was like the up close one. And it wasn't so much that, it was the fact, it was the reaction online, right? Everybody was like, oh my God, this changes everything. And like, people were all up in arms. And what I realized was I got sucked into that energy. So it's like I hadn't even taken the time to analyze it and to really look at it. And I was already I just jumped on board the emotional bandwagon, if you will. And it was like a couple of hours later that I had my good friend, the Maestro, he messaged me. He's like, what do you really think of all this? He's like, I don't know, you might want to take a look at some of these videos. So then I sat down and I started looking at it, and I was like, oh yeah, okay. All right. This is wrong. This is not right. But you're absolutely right. And that, I think for me was a major moment, because I realized that it's that easy, even for people who follow this stuff and pay attention. It's really easy to get sucked into that vortex of the emotional reaction that everybody is having. And of course, you have to remember what Q told us about emotions and all of these things. So it's like, then it all started flooding back to me, and within a couple of hours, I was already posting stuff and questioning the narrative. So anyway, I don't know how I got on that jag about Charlie Kirk, but Mark, you made a really good point about the younger generation that are starting to notice, right? The noticing was what they call it. And I honestly think that it's the older generation that's the harder nut to crack. And that's why you're seeing, and Dave mentioned this. I mean, it's not just like the rabid anti-Semites online that are, that are doing this anymore. It's like, it's the Tucker Carlsons. I mean, he's really taken the lead with this, along with others as well. Of course, there's Marjorie Taylor Greene and there's Matt Gaetz, and there are others. But when you take somebody who's a world-class journalist and just probably one of the most articulate people in the world who can just lay out an argument like Tucker Carlson, particularly to his audience, that's a major difference. I mean, we haven't seen that, and I think that the White Hats are really targeting that older crowd of Christian Zionists, because ultimately I think that's the biggest sort of roadblock that they're facing in terms of getting people to wake up to what's really going on with Israel. So
I think,
I guess,
two of the things that you have to look at in regard to that, like we've discussed a bunch of times, okay, you have different people broadcasting at and to different levels. And as you're going along those different levels and revealing, you listen to Tucker, you listen to Hannity and this and that and the other, and what they're putting out is, well, Charlie Kirk was shot, he was assassinated, blah, 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 blah. When it comes to trying to unbrainwash my generation, you have to remember that the kids who, especially, like I said, the 18 to 24s, which is one of the main demographics that a lot of the news organizations used to go after, they don't watch TV.
No.
They don't watch TV. They're on their phones getting information from here, there, and everywhere else.
mm-hmm.
You have the generation right after them that also doesn't spend a whole hell of a lot of time on TV. But when you get to my generation, you get to people close to, or maybe partially including your generation, these are people who were raised watching TV news, getting brainwashed by the same thing over and over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing, with any kind of religion. All this stuff is handed down from parents to the kids, and it's drummed into their brains at home. Then they get taken to church or synagogue, wherever they happen to go, and it's drummed in there. So they all have their beliefs. Now those beliefs are having to be undone. So they're kind of doing it the same way. And I don't know if it was, going back to Dave's story with Charlie Kirk, I don't know if it happens to be because what I did for a living or what, but when I heard that he was shot, I very calmly got up. I went over to the computer. I called up the video, and I looked, and I went, "It's better than last July." But no, it's fake.
Yeah.
Because at least this time they had people running. But
yeah. But I think, Mark, I think you actually summed up exactly why Patriot is saying that it's the older people. And this is not like finger pointing. You can actually back it up with statistics, right? Like, what group has shifted further? What age group has shifted the most to Donald Trump over the last 8 years? It's 18 to 28. That's a fact. Mostly male, but then more women. So we've shifted more younger people than older people. And exactly what you're saying is the challenge in this whole thing, right? Because I know people personally in their 60s, in their 70s, I don't mean to pick on an age group, right, who understand pretty well how the world works.
Yeah, watch where you're going.
They have a pretty good idea, and they're sitting there going, those kids don't get it, as they turn on Good Morning America, right? Or they turn on even Fox News. Like, that's I shouldn't even use Good Morning America. Those kids don't get it, and then they turn on Fox News, and Fox News on the television all day. Well, hold on. You're not breaking out of it if you're only watching Fox News. We watch it for entertainment purposes right now, right? And to see where the seagrass is going. But you're right. And what causes somebody to wake up? You can't tell them, you have to show them. It's a personal experience. It's a video. It's something that causes you to listen to another voice. And if you're of that generation, which does blend into mine, to be honest, I'm in the middle. But if you're of that generation where your entire life has been a cable box, that's why, quite frankly, the cable news, and we were talking about this backstage, is becoming so completely absurd. Because it's like, look, we can sit there and we'll just pump a bunch of Candace Owens videos into their TikTok feed. They'll figure it out. They'll be fine. All right, just do that. Go. And eventually people will see it. And that's what they've been doing. But how do we get people? How do you get and I'm not even talking about the 4 to 6%. Like I said, I'm talking about your armchair Republicans. I'm talking about the ones that think that everything they're saying on Fox News right now is exactly how the world works. Like, how do we get them to crack a little bit? And that's a lot harder because they don't go on X, they don't go on TikTok, they don't go on Instagram. And for all the bad things that those things can cause, they're extremely powerful weapons in the information world.
Yep.
Totally true. Totally true. And it's also well known that the older you get, the harder it is to you get stuck in your ways, right? That's just kind of the way that the brain works as you get older, and you've solidified what you think is the truth about the world. It gets really, really difficult to break down those barriers, to break that matrix, really. And then if you add to that, it's not even just so much it's like you said, Dave, it's the armchair Republicans, of course, but it's also this religious element that's tied in with it as well. And that is something that's being directly challenged by people like Tucker Carlson when he had Ted Cruz on, and he absolutely skewered the guy. And we're going to watch a couple of clips from Tucker's interview with Jeffrey Sachs. I didn't get to watch the entire thing. I saw pretty good portion of it, but that level of conversation, and again, it's a whole other question about how do we get people who are just simply watching Fox News to tune into Tucker Carlson. But that's probably the closest bridge for people like that, because Tucker was on Fox News and he left. And so, if those people are really starting to look at what Fox News is putting out there and starting to question things, they might go and, if they haven't already, tune into Tucker Carlson and have these types of conversations. And but when you add those two things together, the age, and then you also have the Christian Zionist element, where people have been so brainwashed into thinking that they have to support the secular government of Israel, otherwise they're going to be cursed. And they've been brainwashed with that ideology since they were very, very young. That's a really tough nut to crack right there. But we're seeing some pretty amazing progress being made on that front. And I know that last week when I had the roundtable going, and Mark was a little disappointed we didn't get to talk about Israel. I was like, don't worry, we'll get to it on Thursday. It's obviously not going anywhere. And to tell you the truth, I mean, I'm actually glad that we waited, because so much happened this week in this continuing exposure operation of this, this Zionist hidden hand, which more and more people are quote unquote noticing. And as the White Hats they're not even, it's not just that they're deploying new elements to the narrative, but they're also amplifying it in so many different ways, like I already alluded to. So you guys, like I said, you're aware that Tucker sat down with Jeffrey Sachs last night. And for people who don't know, Jeffrey Sachs is a highly regarded Jewish American professor at, I believe, Columbia University, if I'm not mistaken. He was also at Harvard years ago. But he's been a really outspoken critic of Netanyahu, to say the least. I mean, and this is the same guy, by the way, that Trump reposted or retruthed a video about. This was several months ago now, where he was discussing Netanyahu's success in dragging America into these endless Middle East wars for the past 30 years. And so that's something I think we should maybe get into here in this segment in terms of the optics of, what's going on as far as the Trump administration, what they're putting out there versus what's really going on beneath the surface. So why don't we start with a clip from this interview where Tucker asks Sachs, how is it that a nation of 9 million people who rely on U.S. taxpayer money to even exist are somehow able to completely dictate terms to our government, right? I mean, that's like a pretty reasonable question here. Now, obviously, we can say take control. We can use the air quotes because we all agree that we're watching a scripted movie. So we're talking about the optics here. We're not talking about reality. So let me go ahead and pull that clip up, and we'll go from there. I think this is the one. Yeah, here we go.
seen this close up for more than 50 years. And if you ask me, am I really sure why Netanyahu, who is a absolutely disgusting warmonger, who has dragged us into terrible wars, who is committing massive war crimes, why he gets 57 standing ovations in the US Congress? If you ask me in my heart, do I really understand that? Is it the AIPAC lobby, the Israel lobby? Well, partly. Is it blackmail by Israel? Because there's no doubt a lot of credible claims of Epstein and more about blackmail. Is it that? Is it direct bribes? Is it fear of American politicians? Is it the mainstream media, which for a lot of reasons owned by a lot of billionaires that tend to be rather ardent Zionists? Is it the large Christian Zionist vote base, which is also a real thing? To tell you the truth, none of it really adds up.
I agree.
In full, because this is not in America's interest. It's not in America's interest to be isolated in the world together with a murderous rogue state, which is sad to say what the Israeli government has become. It is the most lawless state in the whole world right now. It's committing massive war crimes. It is, as Netanyahu said, at war in 7 fronts. If you're at war in 7 fronts, that's pretty weird. That shows you don't have diplomacy. You have war as a policy. And of course, Netanyahu does have war as a policy. And, you know, Tucker, I am at the UN a lot, so I am in the UN Security Council a lot, listening or participating in UN sessions. And the UN, the Israeli politicians come and they yell at the whole rest of the world. And they yell at them in the most vulgar, stupid, puerile, and absolutely imbalanced and irrational way. And then the US representative says, yes, yes, we are with Israel. So if you ask me why this is fundamentally, first, it's disgusting. Second, it is no rational basis. And third, if it is the money, the lobbying, the mass media propaganda, the really strange beliefs of some people, whatever it is, even all of that, for my mind, doesn't add up, because a president of the United States should be able to figure this out a little bit better.
All right. So, I mean, this clip, again, the lead into it was basically what I described. I mean, Tucker was asking, how is it possible that you've got a country of 9 million people versus a country of over 300 million, and this tiny little country, it completely relies upon the United States just to exist. That's a fact. How do they end up being so cowed by Israel? How is it possible that we're doing the bidding of Israel? Seemingly, again, on the surface, we know that this is all scripted. At least I think that we're all in agreement on that front. But it really begs a question to which I think all of us do know the answer, right? Tying in the blackmail. Yeah, he mentioned Epstein, bribery. He didn't mention it directly, but the Samson option is something that gets talked about a lot in the context of this conversation. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how White Hat Productions scripted this interview, given what we just talked about in terms of the intended audience. Like, who are they trying to reach here? Tucker Carlson, Jeffrey Sachs, again, a very high level, erudite type of a conversation that's clearly not geared toward the people who are already just hate the Jews, right? So I have several clips from this interview that I think we could probably tie into our discussion about Israel, but why don't we go ahead and start here? So either one of you guys can comment on that.
Well, first of all, I think that there are many things to look at here and many things that people don't understand. Number one, I think that one of the problems in this entire movie that we're going through is that people don't understand that the problem is and always has been the governments, not their populace. Then on top of that, most people don't understand and don't know how reviled Netanyahu is in his own country by his own people. And the big part of it is a lot of people, and I've noticed that in many, many discussions in the chats and in the comments and this and that and the other, most people don't know what a Zionist is or what a secular individual is. And I think that's a piece of, going back to the whole thing about sitting and watching the MSM and waiting for people to explain everything to you. People hear words and they don't understand what they are. And especially for many, many, many Jews, don't have they all rave about the fact they're Zionists and they have no idea what the hell they're saying. Because if you were truly Jewish and you held to the beliefs of the Torah, you're not a Zionist. There are many ultra-Orthodox Jews, most of them, as a matter of fact, who don't agree with the state of Israel, even its existence as it is. So there are a whole bunch of things that have to be laid out there and pointed out that people need to understand before they move forward with it. And I think with the political aspect of it, you have to wonder, as Sachs said, excuse me, the Zionist Christians, and I think a lot of them don't really understand what a Zionist is. And the fact that a lot of people in our government, maybe because it's a great place to hide money or a lot of the take, but there are dual citizenships with the United States and Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And that lends itself to a problem right there, especially if you are a legislator of this country. We already know that you're making the rules for the people with the money. But whose interests are you putting first? Ours? The corporations? Israel's? China's? Whose interests are you putting before your own people? So there's a lot there that has to be discovered and has to be turned over. As far as Netanyahu's concerned, as far as the wars are concerned, we don't know how many of them are what's being shown in the mainstream media, much like Ukraine, et cetera, et cetera. We don't know what's real, what's not. But we know that the talk coming from Netanyahu and the talk coming from is the state of Israel is warmongering. And I was listening to something before we came on tonight, talking about how ridiculous it is that we give Patriot missiles and stuff like that to Qatar, and Israel's got F-35 bombers, and so Qatar with Patriot missiles is shooting down U.S.-made bombs and projectiles coming from U.S.-made planes. They're given to both parties to go against each other. And it's like, you have to look at stuff like that, and a lot of people don't understand that going on either. There's so much, again, going back to the governments, that is evil, and it's because of the fact that they're all on the payrolls. Evil, money has always been the root of all evils, and I think that that's one of the things that's trying to be presented to people to show how far this has gone, how far out of control it's gotten. Because when you look at the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and the 13 families and this and that and the other, yes, they've all been taken out. But look at the damage that's been done for centuries. And I always go back to the statement that I know I've made on our shows and I know I've made with you. Who's really the bad guy? The devil for tempting you with things, or the person who takes what the devil is offering? And you really have to look at that, because it's bad enough that you've got the devil out there making these temptations and trying to enslave humanity. But you've got plenty of people who are willing, for the sake of money and power, to do it. And I think that's the biggest obstacle we have to overcome. But taking down these, well, you can't call Bibi a paper tiger, but to take down these tyrants, they have to be revealed. And I think at least the people of Israel understand that this guy's a scumbag and he's got to go. But much like here, it's just not that easy to get rid of them. So I think that's why it's being handled the way it is with Israel for last, because he's shown a lot of the other places and their capitulation. So it's gonna get more and more interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we probably all agree here that Bibi's already gone. I don't think I'd get much argument from you guys on that front. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
no, it's the narrative though.
Right. That was kind of where I was going with it. It's like, it's not so difficult to necessarily get rid of them, but getting rid of the narrative, getting rid of the generations of brainwashing. That's ultimately what the battlefield is all about right now. Yep. It's not kinetic anymore in that sense, at least in my opinion. I mean, we all know 10-7 was as fake as a $3 bill. We all know that Gaza has basically wagged the dog at this point. We all know that Netanyahu's not the real Netanyahu, bare minimum. And so here we are, but you've got this really prominent Jewish American professor, right? And that I think is key, right? So coming from somebody like Jeffrey Sachs, that they're really starting to chip away at this ideology. And there's another clip I want to show in a minute, but I want to hear from Dave first on where this whole ideology comes from. When they go back and they revisit that interview that Tucker did with Ted Cruz, where he just absolutely skewered him, right? He couldn't even quote the Bible correctly, and actually was misquoting the whole thing. And I think that's something important to point out. But you're absolutely right, Mark. I mean, it's a very, very difficult process to reverse what people have come to accept over decades and decades and decades.
Well, before Dave goes, I just want to put out the point that I have to applaud Sachs for what he did. Applaud myself for what I do. Okay, we have to police our own. We have to stop playing this. I've referred to religions as sports teams. My team's better than yours, and if you don't play for my team, you suck, and this and that and the other. People have to start reining in their own and taking accountability for their own, instead of saying, well, he's Jewish, I'm Jewish, I got to back him. No.
Exactly.
No.
Yep.
Everybody, that's why pencils have erasers. Everybody makes mistakes. And the mistakes have to be cleaned up, and you can't turn a blind eye just because, quote unquote, they're one of my kind. No.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I would argue that probably most American Jews think that way, not the way you do, but in terms of that group mentality, right?
Well,
they stick together.
Who's been, if you look, it's even Mike King's book, The Song That Never Ends. The Holocaust wasn't just about the Jews. There were tens of millions of other people, non-Jewish, who were killed.
Yeah, by the Bolsheviks.
By the Bolsheviks, by the Germans. Yeah. Mm-hmm. How many Russians were killed? How many Poles were killed? Priests, homosexuals, gypsies, handicapped. The list just goes on and on. But it's always been made about the Jews. And things like that have got to stop, because That's what makes people hate you.
Yeah, and that whole 6 million number was that was thrown around well before World War II, and in multiple different contexts as well. People are starting to figure that out. But yeah, absolutely. And I applaud you, Mark. I have to say, because it's a brave thing to stand up as a Jewish man. I mean, first of all, you're a truther anyway, so I wouldn't expect anything less of you. But the fact that you're willing to stand up and say, "Listen, I'm Jewish, but I draw the line at a certain point. Just because I'm Jewish doesn't mean that I'm a Zionist, and just because I happen to have been a Jew all my life, and that's always been my culture, my identity, and so forth, you're able to delineate between that and what is clearly criminal activity that's been happening for decades and decades and decades. And but most people, and that's exactly where they're trying to take this conversation. It's the same reason why they had, even on South Park, you saw that episode of South Park where they had Cartman's mom bust into Netanyahu's office and start lambasting him about how difficult he's making it for American Jews. I think that's what they're doing on multiple different fronts. Is they're trying to, first of all, they're trying to separate. And this is something I've said for a very long time, because I have people in my life who are very dear to me, who are Jewish. And so when I started figuring out the truth about the Zionists and their being at the top of the cabal and all this stuff, it was a very important thing for me to always state what should be obvious to everybody, but isn't, that it's not all Jews, and that it's a small sect, like a satanic cult within that's basically cloaked itself in Judaism. It's not all Jews. And I think that's what we're seeing now with these types of conversations. It's just starting, but they're laying the groundwork for people to be able to make that distinction. And they're also sort of building a bridge so that people can realize that, yes, you can still be Jewish, you can still be whatever you want to be, but that doesn't mean that you have to go along with what the Zionist government of Israel is doing, even though it's all fake, right? So anyway, Dave, over to you, brother.
I'm enjoying watching the sidebar here. But kind of to bring things back to the original question, which I believe was what's the strategy here in terms of this? I want to take a back up from it. I think in order to look at saving Israel for last, you have to actually go back 2 years. You have to go back to 10/7, because yes, it's starting in a big way in the narrative space right now. But one thing I noticed after 10/7 was I noticed a lot of people suddenly actually taking a look at Israel and Palestine, not just looking at what we're told, right? And let me be very clear, I don't take sides with either one. Each one has done things that are wrong. But the prevailing narrative is that poor Israel, Palestine are a bunch of Arab terrorists, go on about your day. Even though right now, like as of today, 154 out of 193 countries recognize Palestinian states. So that should right away call you into question, wait, are we the ones missing the memo, or is it the rest of the world, right? But after that point, I noticed a lot of people actually starting to have an open conversation about what is actually happening. I didn't open air prison. I never heard that. Wait, they don't have water, the electricity, they're not allowed out. Like all these different things started happening. And that's been brewing for 2 years now. Yep. And then on top of that, I believe we used kind of a multi-layered psyop with these Palestinian protests everywhere. On the surface, it's look at all these liberal kids out of control. They're all supporting Palestine, right? That's how we used it initially. They took over Colombia, all these different things. Okay. But then what would happen if you start seeing endless people protesting? At some point, maybe subconsciously, people are going, well, wait a second, what is actually going on here? Why are there so many people all of a sudden supporting Palestine? And at least, even if they didn't look into it, at least subconsciously, there's a degree of predictive programming there that kind of makes people think, well, what might be going on? So I think they set this up for 2 years, personally. And now we've gotten to a point where it's coming out into the open. So in this particular clip, think about how we all ended up here, right? Q. What is the basis of Q? It's the Socratic method, right? Why is the Socratic method so powerful? Because you don't tell somebody something. You ask them questions and you kind of leave them with an open-ended position that causes the brain to keep turning. Let me think a little bit more, right? And so when you watch that on the surface, you kind of say to yourself, oh, dude, and I know I've done it, most people do it, but once you really understand, and it's the same thing with Joe Rogan, it's the same thing with a lot of these people out there that are all kind of speaking in different lanes. You say to yourself, like when Sachs is sitting there going, well, I don't really know why. You're going, of course you know why. Just say it. They own everything. What's going to happen? Somebody's brain's just going to shut off, and now you're not showing them, you're telling them. Right?
Great point.
It's the same thing. Like, think about it. You can get most people nowadays. If you say, hey, do you think there's children trafficked in this world? They're like, yeah, of course. If you say, do you know that the politicians eat babies and drink blood? They're going to glaze right over. Yeah. So I think what the design of this is I think the people that are scripting this and running this whole thing, and I don't want to say they handpick every last thing that's said, but the people that are coordinating all this, like, I think they have a good understanding as to where that level of cognitive dissonance is. And at any moment, they have a pretty good idea as to where they want to take people. And with something like this, and I know you have more you're going to show, the idea, before we can get to everything that Mark just so eloquently laid out, and he's 100% right, but before you can get to them, the passports and the dual citizenship and all that stuff, you have to kind of ease them in and start with like, hey, why do we spend all this money? Why do we support all this? Why do they tell us this? Again, I would right away go to somebody, hey, what do you think about Palestine? Oh, they're a bunch of terrorists. You ever wonder why 75% of the world recognizes them and we're one of only a handful of countries? Leave those things there. That at least leaves people a reason to kind of leave the interview and think about it, rather than just coming and saying, hey, I'm Jeffrey Sachs. Let me tell you how Israel works in an hour. That wouldn't work.
I totally agree. And that's a great point, because you're spot on in the sense that if you try to tell, it's why you have to show and not tell. But part of showing is to leave those open-ended questions that people start to go, I don't know. You're right. That doesn't really seem to add up. And then from there, of course, it opens up the door for them to then introduce subsequent narratives, but they're doing it very artfully. And again, I think it's worth emphasizing here that this is coming from a Jewish man, right? If it was coming from somebody else, it wouldn't be as effective either.
Then you'd have the rhetoric pouring in.
Exactly. And they can't play the anti-Semite.
Exactly.
Right? They can't just throw, even though I think to a large degree that doesn't really work anymore. That whole it's just kind of like, racism or sexism, all of those things, anti-Semitism, all of the isms are pretty much dead at this point.
They don't have the power to cancel anybody anymore. So you can turn on CNN, you're still going to hear somebody spewing at the mouth about anti-Semitic, and that's it. It's gone the next day. They don't have the social media or the regular media power to destroy somebody's life for what they say anymore. So you may see it on CNN or MSNBC for a day or 2 days, and then it's gone.
Mm-hmm. Which also has the effect, I think, on the subconscious of people out there being like, oh, that's just it's kind of a relic of the past. They're slapping labels on people to blunt real conversations. And Tucker actually did a whole monologue where he talked about that, the idea. And Charlie Kirk, and going back to him, he was talking about that stuff as well, right up to the event. I'm not going to call it when he was killed, but right up to the event. I mean, these were the things that he was talking about. Not only was he saying that you can't criticize Israel without being called an anti-Semite, but he was even going so far as to say that Israel was planning on ethnically cleansing Gaza. I mean, this guy was putting it all out there.
He literally said in that clip that it would be or it is the biggest genocide since the Holocaust. His words. Yeah. His words.
Right. And so people are now revisiting a lot of those clips, people who did, maybe at the time they didn't hear them. But in light of all of this narrative dispensation about Gaza and these war crimes and genocide, I mean, it's not just coming from the fringe anti-Semites who hate the Jews anymore. Right. That's not what this is about. It's like the Overton window has shifted massively right into the center, where it's safe to have these types of conversations. And the labels, it's kind of like getting hit with a foam dart. You're just like, whatever, and you just continue on the conversation. So, all right.
Just before you go, have either one of you ever been to Israel?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. Okay. I was there in 2000. So before 9/11. And I was no different then than I am now, except I was younger and probably had more piss and vinegar than I do now. But I remember we were on a tour and going around, it was like a private tour, tour guide and this and that and the other. And he was taking us around all these different parts of Tel Aviv and Jerusalem and a bunch of other towns, including some of the border towns. And you would look and you would see in general, you could see, Israeli kids playing with Palestinian kids, Muslim and Jew playing together and this and that and the other. But the thing that got me into an argument with the tour guide was he showed me some of these really beautiful Palestinian homes. And the one thing that I noticed was in this neighborhood, you could see the Palestinians' homes and you could see the Israelis' homes, and they're equally as beautiful. But on the Palestinian streets, the roads weren't paved. Sometimes they had water or electricity, sometimes they didn't. And I said to the guy, all these people want to do is like everybody else, come and earn a living, take care of their families, go home at night, and be peaceful. Do you think that maybe if you paved their streets, they wouldn't have rocks to throw at you? Or if you gave them the electricity and the water that they need to conduct a normal life, that a lot of this stuff wouldn't happen? So that's a quarter of a century ago. And when you look at how long the mainstream media and the government and everything else has been doing everything they can with anti-Semitism and racism, all the isms like you were talking about, to divide us.
Yep.
Now you add a quarter century onto that. Where the hell are you now? And this is the point that I'm getting at with all of this. You want to look fairly at something, look at both sides. Because somewhere in the middle lies the truth.
Well said. Yeah, well said. And, the other part of it too, I remember I was talking about this with Mike King not too long ago. He did a piece on, I don't know if he did it with you guys on your show, but it was all about the Nakba. It was basically the Palestinian, because, a lot of people think that, in 1948, the state of Israel was created and, they drew a line and, the Jews moved in and that was that, right? And nobody really knows exactly much of the story beyond that about how the Palestinians were basically, removed from their land by force and so forth, and how that really is now becoming part of the conversation as well. Like people are starting to ask these questions: what was the real origin of this conflict anyway? How did the Palestinians get into this predicament to begin with? And then, of course, it goes back even farther to the Balfour Declaration and what was the impetus for creating the state of Israel in the first place. But I think this next clip really gets right down to the heart of why there's so much of the brainwashing going back to the whole biblical narrative, because that's where I think most people need to be red pilled, quite frankly, because if they can get past this idea that, well, if you're a Christian, a Zionist Christian, but let's just say if you're a Christian, you have to bless Israel, and that's synonymous with agreeing with everything that Israel does, the Israeli government does, because it goes to when people can break that programming, then I think it opens up the door to a much wider awakening. So let's go ahead and watch this clip. This one's pretty short.
To control our politics. Like, I thought we all agreed on that. I've always felt that way. No matter what the government, Russia was not controlling our politics. That was the lie there. But the truth was that.
Wait, I didn't start at the beginning. Sorry. There we go.
It is a little strange when Senator Cruz, when you asked him about this, he couldn't even quote the Bible right. By the way, you asked him, and he said, "Well, God says that I will bless those who bless Israel," which is, by the way, not what Genesis says.
No,
it says, "I will bless those who bless Abraham." This is a little bit different. and he couldn't even quote the
No.
passage properly. But it was in that name that he said, "This is why we have to do it." It's like you just heard, we were just listening to Lindsey Graham. They can't even quote this so-called scripture that's telling them what to do. It's so preposterous.
Well,
and
and
sad.
its effect is to really distort American politics. I thought we agreed during the Russia hysteria of the last administration that it was wrong and illegal, actually, for a foreign government to control our politics. Like, I thought we all agreed on that. I've always felt that way, no matter what the government. Russia was not controlling our politics. That was the lie there. But the truth was that's wrong. And now it seems like our entire national conversation is about this tiny, totally irrelevant little country with one great city, Jerusalem, but geopolitically irrelevant country. And that's at the behest of a foreign government who's openly saying, you don't agree with us, we're going to censor you. How can that stand? How can a foreign leader call for censorship of American citizens? And then all those little satellite groups, the ADL, AIPAC, all of them, all push that. And then the Congress obeys. Like, that seems to me, that's got to be a red line.
So I thought that was a really interesting clip there, because the whole idea, it's kind of the chosen people, right? That being synonymous with the Zionist ideology, it's being dismantled in real time. And it just like as Sachs pointed out here, the Bible says in Genesis that it's written that those who bless Abraham will be blessed, not the state of Israel. So now I think there's a lot of people out there who are probably going, "Oh, really?" And they're running back to their Bible to check things out, right? But the larger point is that Tucker makes is that this heresy, if you want to call it that, is being used as a justification by Zionist Christians, both in and outside of the government, to approve of the notion that Israel can dictate U.S. foreign policy. Now, again, this is all, I have to keep repeating this because I don't believe that any of this is actually real and playing out. This is all part of the movie. It's all part of the rollout here. But in that context, it's like we're seeing more and more examples of that emerge with regard not only to the endless wars, but also he even mentioned the issue of censorship, which I want to talk about a little bit in just a moment. But the weaponization of the intelligence community, on and on and on. So your reactions to that clip, guys.
Go ahead, Mark.
Well, look, it goes back to what we were just talking about. And it goes back to the brainwashing and the division that's been sown over the past bunch of decades. You can't go in and say anything about the blacks because you're a racist. You can't say anything about women because you're a sexist. You can't say anything about the Jews because you're an anti-Semite. And they fostered this to the point, especially the mainstream media, that they created this, as we know it now, this woke society, that everybody is afraid to open their mouths about anything, especially in the workplace. Because if they offend somebody, they could lose their jobs, they could be censured, they could be ostracized. There are a whole bunch of bad connotations that go along with making any of these statements. And that's part of the division that's been sown, and that's part of the narrative that they wanted put out there and they wanted in people's heads of being PC. When for a long time, we weren't PC. I mean, could you imagine now if they played back a Dean Martin roast? They burned down Las Vegas. Or if they played back All in the Family.
How about Andrew Dice Clay from like back in the 80s?
Oh, God.
Yeah. I mean, all of this stuff. But it became almost like with a guillotine, because it wasn't a gradual thing. It was like, boom, and it was there.
Yep.
And this is what not only they created, but this was what they wanted.
And then the censorship followed very shortly after. Right?
Well, yeah, because if you have people so afraid of saying something that it's going to offend and possibly make you lose your job or, your place in society, et cetera, you're not going to do it. And it's just gotten to the point of being so stupid. One of the reporters that I used to work with, a black reporter, one of my good friends, very, very nice guy. We're sitting in the truck one day and he goes, "You know how every black joke begins?" So I go, "Okay, how?" He goes, because anything like that, you got to look over your shoulder. Who's watching? Who's listening? And this is what they've created, not just here in America, but globally.
Yep.
Because as long as we're fighting each other and we're picking each other apart for picayune little bullshit, we're not watching them.
Yep.
And that's the key. And we've become so accustomed to fighting each other and paying attention to stupid things like iPhones and game boxes, et cetera, that we don't watch them publicly rape each and every one of us on a daily basis. And that's why we are where we are, not just here, but globally.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. Yeah, it's the classic divide and conquer. I mean, that's really what it's all about. It's just a lot more sophisticated. So yeah, I want to get your take, Dave, as well. But then I'm curious what you guys make of this whole the optics that they're creating around the censorship issue as well, with Ellison taking over TikTok and all that stuff. But one thing at a time. So your comments on that last clip.
Well, I'll keep it quick. Actually, Mark's 100% right on what they did. I don't think we're at that place anymore as far as fighting with each other. I really don't. I think a lot of it is just optics at this point. But that's a separate thing. I think that we are breaking out of that in a big way. But yeah, that's what they did, 100%. As far as that clip, I'll keep it short. What are they doing here? Going back to what I said, Socratic method. So they're trying to. There's some key buzz phrases that I noticed that seem to pop up in all these videos at this point. That you could use on people. Hey, did you know Israel's only the size of New Jersey? Because people don't. They think every country in the Middle East is like the size of Africa. Did you know there's only 9 million people? Did you know we give X amount of our budget, right? They're trying to get people to kind of start using some common sense. Because if you actually, once you break out of being told then the matrix, then you say to yourself, well, wait a second. And again, I mean no disrespect to the people of Israel. I know there's a lot of beautiful places there, but you say to yourself, hang on a second. Our number one ally of all the countries in the world, it's not the country to the north that could invade us if they really wanted to, or the country to the south. It's not them. It's not anybody that we have major trading with. It's not anybody that supplies key trading routes. No. It's this little speck in the Middle East. Does that make sense to you? It's like saying you're an NFL football player and you've got all these famous people around you and your best friend is a 6-year-old boy. Does that really jive with logic? It doesn't. But that's what they've done to us. Our number one, our closest ally. Well, wait a second. Why? Somebody tell me why. And then you start to inject. Well, look at the control they have, and the thing what we're going to go to next with their influence on the media. And then you start to say, wait a second. Why is this 6-year-old boy telling this NFL player how to dress and what to wear? That doesn't really what to do with his money. That doesn't make sense. He's 6 years old. That guy's a 30-year-old NFL star. Why is that happening? So that's what I think they're trying to do there, is start to pick away at some of these entrenched narratives that have been drilled into people's heads. Start to think, does it make, and again, leaving it open-ended, not just jamming it down their throat. Here's why it works. Here's how it got set up. Here's how the money flows. But trying to get people to think, does it make sense? Does what you're told make sense? I think that's what's going on there.
Yeah. And I think they sell it on both a sort of a societal, cultural, and a religious level. That's how they sell that idea to the public, right? That Israel is the only democratic nation in the Middle East. They're the only ones who share our values, our Judeo-Christian values. I mean, that's always how they sell it. And of course, like I mentioned, it's embedded into this Christian Zionist ideology, which of course is based on a fallacy, as we just talked about. But that's how they sell it to people. But in reality, we know that going back to that question from the first clip, why is this possible? How is this happening? I think we know the answer to that question. right? It all comes back to Epstein. It all comes back to, and Q said, I mean, infiltration, not invasion. And that's essentially what this is all about. Mossad is at the top of the food chain. They've got all these people by the balls. And that's why they do their bidding. And of course, they make it worth their while in terms of, I mean, they give the money. There's all sorts of perks that go along with it. But the reality is, just like Howard Lutnick came out and said today, you go for a massage with Jeffrey Epstein and they get you on video, and then, they got you at that point, and very interesting, of course, that he's, he came out and, he's very much at odds with what Kash Patel is saying, right? As a part of this whole reverse psyop here to generate this controversy. So, and we can talk about that as well. I mean, certainly we can take this anywhere you got.
Last time I checked, Lutnick is what?
He would be a Jew.
That's right.
Yes.
Funny how that works.
Right, isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't it? Yeah. Yet another example.
It's almost like somebody planned it that way.
Almost like that. Well, I'm curious to get you guys. I mean, I don't want to beat this Israel thing to death here, but I am very curious about hearing your take on this. The sale of TikTok, and it's interesting because they even removed the juice emoji, because people would use like the juice box emoji to mean Jews. So they've taken that down. They're censoring all types of posts. And we all saw I'm not going to show it again, but we've all seen the clip of Netanyahu talking about how this is the battlefield now. We've got to fight with the weapons on social media. And we've got to target, TikTok was the most important. And then, Elon's a friend, and we got to talk to Elon and basically do the same thing. Meanwhile, Elon is coming out and saying the ADL is a hate group. Which had the kind of comical end result of them taking down their hate glossary, where they had like a Christian identity, right? They've now taken that down, so you should see how they're playing this whole thing, right?
Yep.
But so in the meantime, let me just kind of throw out some data points here, and we can talk about this, and then we can maybe move on to a different topic here. We've come to hear that the Israeli government is supposedly paying its influencers up to $7,000 per post. That just came out. I just mentioned Elon and the whole hate group thing. Let's see. What else do we have here? Oh, yeah. There was also there was this channel. I'm not even familiar with it, but I guess it was censored on X, the Right Angle News Network. It was just censored on X today. I don't know whether that has to do with anything quote unquote anti-Semitic or not, but very interesting because Elon's been on both sides of this. On the one hand, he's saying ADL is a hate group, but on the other hand, he has made several comments along the lines of, well, we've got to eradicate anti-Semitism. He's parroted a lot of the same language as like we've heard out of Pam Bondi, we've heard out of Kash Patel, and really pretty much everybody within Trump's administration seems to be on the surface aligned with this whole idea, right? And people are saying, well, wait a second. I thought that the whole reason for the sale of TikTok to an American company was to counter China's influence. And now it's kind of like people are like, wait a second, this kind of seems like a bait and switch here, where maybe it wasn't about China, maybe it was about Israel the entire time. So I'm curious to get your take on the way that they're scripting this, how they're making it seem as if Trump is and his team is very much aligned with this idea of protecting Israel, when we know that there's an entirely different objective in the end game. But given where we're at right now, I'm curious to hear you guys share your thoughts on that.
Well, look, there's a number of Q drops, right, that alludes to the fact that POTUS will not be addressing the nation on any of these issues, right? Now, we don't know specifically what they are. But we've seen this playbook now over and over and over again. What is Trump going to do? How many times have you guys tried pulling a normie aside and telling them about Operation Mockingbird, even though it's a declassified CIA program? Like, they're going to look at you, you're going to get that glaze over. They're not going to believe it. You could show them videos, doesn't matter. Oh, this is Rumble, this is right wing. You can't do it. It's not going to work. So it's the same thing he did with Epstein. It's the same thing he did with Albert Bourla the other day, the CEO of Pfizer, everyone losing their minds. The same thing he did the first or second day in office when he had all the tech bros up there with the AI and they were talking about mRNA and everyone lost their mind. Yep. It's the same playbook over and over again. Donald Trump, God bless him, he says taking the slings and arrows for a reason. That's a famous clip because no offense to Charlie Kirk. They call him the Man of Steel. No, Trump's the Man of Steel. He literally steps in front of bullets every single step of the way. So again, can somebody stand up and say, oh, by the way, not only is all the media controlled by 6 companies, but did you know, 75% of their C-suite, their boards are, either are Israeli or have Israeli passports. Not going to buy it. So they're literally they throw Bibi out there. They have him literally recreate. I forget that 1981 movie where like the guy is talking about how their world plans are coming together for depopulation, and you basically have him do that, talk about all their plans, and you do it with the 2 most visible platforms in the world. Amongst, by the way, which generations? The younger ones, because they're going to look and scream and connect the conspiracy and spread it like wildfire. And be prepared, because I already see that bubbling up. In fact, it's on my list of things to talk about probably over the weekend. Who's going at Trump about this whole thing? Candace Owens. Oh, isn't that funny? I thought they worked together. They do. That's how kayfabe works. She's calling. While on one hand, she's bringing up the flank, telling everybody about all the BS behind Charlie Kirk and how it connects to Israel. She's also coming around the other end, calling out Trump for letting them do this. Yeah, that's right. Why people get so confused with this stuff, right? Yep. But that's what it is. It's once again, Trump keeping people on their toes, first of all, but taking himself out of it. It gets very difficult to attack a certain position. It would be a lot easier for the enemies to say Trump is an anti-Semite and Trump is trying to get it. He's got all his Q people brainwashed into believing Israel control. Well, if he pretends to buddy up with Israel, he knows, okay, yeah, you guys can accuse me of whatever you want right now, but it makes the optics a lot better for the people that understand it, for the people that hate him. And then he knows that whatever they have planned eventually will come back around and they'll clean up the rest of that later. But they keep using the same playbook over and over and over again. And with all due respect to a lot of people, probably not in this audience, but in our greater movement, I just don't understand how more people don't see it at this point. They go out there and Albert Bourla is in the White House. Oh my God, I'm burning all my MAGA gear. It's horrible. We're all died. Like they keep doing the same thing over and over again, guys.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I mean, Trump has to take that position of being pro-Israel for tactical reasons, because it wouldn't work otherwise. The pincer maneuver that they're doing with like people like Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Candace Owens and all these people on the right, and then you've got people on the left like Cenk Uygur, and you've got John Oliver, and all of these people on the left are attacking from both sides. They're dismantling this whole idea of America's relationship with Israel. It wouldn't really work if Trump jumped on board of that bandwagon, right? Because it would isolate it for the time being. I mean, it would kind of make most of his base like, what the hell is this? All of a sudden you're anti-Israel. This is the whole reason that we voted for you and this and that. And then, the people on the left, it's a lot more palatable for them to be anti-Israel and to, be pro-Palestinian and all of these types of things, because again, it puts them at odds with Trump. Right. So it's kind of like, it makes a lot of sense from a tactical position. And I agree with you, Dave. I mean, it's the same playbook that they're running over and over and over again. But when you look at it when you don't understand the playbook, it's very easy for people to look at that and say, well, wait a second, right? It looks like Trump is, we're being duped here. He's actually a Zionist and all these things. He's allowing all of these things to happen. But the reality of the matter is that's why you have to understand. And this is a theme we come back to over and over and over. If you don't know about Q, if you haven't really done your homework, there's no way that you're going to be able to bridge that gap of understanding. No, you're only going to see the optics that are out there. And they're very convincing, right? I mean, you watch them, you turn on mainstream media, or heck, even if you go on social media and you start scrolling through social media, start scrolling through X, you're going to see all of these people just, attacking Trump for that exact reason, who have no idea what the operation is that's being run in the background, right? And that, I think, is something that, again, even though we've talked about it multiple times, it's important to remind folks. So
yeah, just to add a quick side note to that before you go to Mark, like think about just a quick sidebar, like think about the Pfizer thing, right? Everyone, I mean, I still see people are losing their mind. He's in the White House. He's there with Trump. They're shaking hands. All right. First of all, go back and rewatch that whole thing. Watch his body language. He looked like he was ready to, you know what, himself. Watch RFK in the background giving him the death stare. Okay. Then say to yourself, Big Pharma has arguably controlled this country since around 1910, right? They had a good 115-year run going, kind of like the Fed. He started the press conference by telling you that Pfizer and Big Pharma, 75% of their profits come from the United States. Then he immediately tells you that they're going to be dropping their prescription prices in the United States by 80%. So wait a second. If you drop 75% of your profits by 80%, what is that going to do to Big Pharma?
Math doesn't math.
And did they just what? They just wanted, and he started out by saying he did the right thing. It's exactly what a mob boss says when you walk in. You're going to do the right thing, right, Johnny? Again, but even if you don't know the intricacies of the whole the body language, everything, just stop for a minute and think about the money, the billions of dollars that this guy, just like everybody that moved their factories, had just walked in and kissed the ring and dropped billions of dollars on the table. Why is that happening? So you can get mad about him being there, or you could, again, we started the show talking about emotion. Stop for a second and say to yourself, even if you don't really understand the Q operation at large, like, well, what else is going on here? Why would this guy suddenly just decide to give up all this money?
Right. Great point. Marky?
Well, you know, I've got a few different viewpoints on this, but when I look at the way that people look at the way that the president reacts with this, and I have to go back to what we were discussing before, you know, and again about policing your own. You have so many people in America, but also Jews in America using, and again, the media feeds it and it gets repeated and repeated and repeated. He's Hitler. He's a Nazi. You know, you hear some people that we know, because we have this discussion all the time at home. You know, he's gonna round us all up and put us in camps.
Yeah.
And my response has always been, "That's great. I've never been to camp." So, you know, but it's the type of situation, again, between the brainwashing and the wash, rinse, repeat of it, and the premise that they put out there. People don't think on their own. They don't use that lump sitting on their shoulder other than to listen and repeat things. And when it comes to social media, that's why I said it comes to a different topic with me. And Patriot, you know, Dave can't relate directly to this, but you can. As a parent, and part of my gripe, and I've mentioned it on the air several times, is the fact that parents nowadays don't want to be parents. And a lot of times can't afford to be parents because too many households have to have both parents working in order to support the household. And there's only so many hours in the day. So nobody's really, who's raising the kids? And a lot of the times it's this, and it's the iPad, and it's social media on the computer, et cetera, et cetera. And kids are watching things that they shouldn't be watching. So never mind what political leaders and other politicians are putting on the social media and putting it on things like TikTok and Instagram, et cetera, et cetera. But look at what other people are posting on these things that is directly affecting our young people. And if you go back to what the president has always stuck right from the very beginning, it's all about the children. And the biggest besides child trafficking itself and SRA and all of that, the biggest abduction of our kids, not physically, but mentally, is what's on social media. So if Ellison or any of the others are going to get on and make some, what most people would look at as unpopular decisions with censoring certain things, man, I'm 117% for it. Because I'm not so much worried about what BB has to say on TikTok, but I'm sure as hell worried about what some, 65-year-old pretending that they're 13 is doing on the social media.
Yeah.
And I think that's more so what people should worry about, other than how they're using it for political information or political advantage.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. It really is. One of the things that I wonder about, just in terms of closing out this segment, is how far, because we're watching optics right now. We're watching a scripted movie, and there are times when it gets a little bit, at least for me personally, I wonder how far they're going to go with the optics of the censorship, right? Like it's going to start. It's already starting on TikTok. Is it going to bleed over into X? Is that part of bringing us to the precipice? I mean, are we going to start to see channels like ours perhaps getting censored? I mean, to be honest with you, it really took me by surprise. I think you guys know this, that my Truth Social was taken down for like 3 weeks. And it was interesting because I never even got a reason. I appealed it, and then I didn't get a response for a couple of weeks. And then I tweeted at Devin Nunes, and like 5 minutes later, I got an email, which is kind of funny. And at
least you got some pull, my friends.
Well, I mean, I don't know. It could have just been a coincidence. I mean, but they never told me why the channel was taken down. They just gave me a code, and I typed in the code, and boom, my channel was back. But I guess the point is that I wonder about that. How far are they going to go with that? And then you hear Tucker talking about in the UK, I think he said something like 12,000 people were supposedly arrested for like online hate speech in 2023. Is that part of the movie? I mean, I guess it is part of the movie, but is it real? Kind of curious, what you guys think about that.
Look, it's not a popular take, but it's one I'm personally not going to back down from until I see otherwise. I personally believe, I don't get. I'll give you an example. Like we were talking about the other day, how I'm sure you saw the story, how Google had to basically free YouTube and admit to all this collusion with the Biden administration, and that they wouldn't use fact check. Right. Okay. Yeah. So I went on and I appealed my YouTube suspension, and they came back and they said, go F yourself. Right.
Yeah. Me
now,
too.
Do I get upset by that? No, because the unpopular take is what is I believe one of the most important things for everyone in the Great Awakening to experience is to personally experience censorship. So I freely admit it was probably it might have been 2020, to be honest. It was probably that late in the game. Had I heard about censorship? Sure. Did I listen to a lot of the radio jocks back in the day saying they want to get out of the business because it was getting too corporate? Sure. But did I understand so keep in mind, we're raised saying that, no, you go to China, you go to Russia, they have state-run media. They control everything. You can't say anything. Quite honestly, it's quite the opposite when you go to China, but that's a whole separate story. So you're offshore. We've offshored this notion of censorship. The first time that I was trying to post something, I don't remember what it was about, and it was taken down. Like, what? And then I post something else, and my Facebook account is gone. Again, I think that's just as important as somebody watching the mainstream media, that first moment where they actually watch the mainstream media lie to their face, and they realize it on their own without one of us trying to jam it down their throats. So is it are there people that I probably got caught up in this that, yeah, there was arrest? Sure. I mean, I don't know when we took things over, but my personal belief over the last 4 years is that we've probably had the power and the ability to stop all the censorship. If you look at the executive orders and, what's his face? Bin Salman going around to all the tech bros in 2018. And you can make the argument that we've leaned into all these companies. Otherwise, how do we get a hold of Twitter to begin with, right? But I think that there's been, they've left a lot of this in place because, yeah, well, we're all sick of it. We've been at this for years. But think about somebody, like I know people personally that just in my sphere down here that kind of just started figuring this stuff out. And they're in that mode where they're digging, they're going. Okay, that person needs to go online to try to post something and have Facebook take it down. They have to experience that. If you take that away, that's a big part of the awakening that they're not getting to experience. So I don't know where the line is as far as the arrests and all that kind of stuff. I do believe that some of this stuff we've been given to, like the guy that went to jail for posting a meme about Hillary Clinton. I think some of this stuff is absolutely white hat narrative. I don't know where the line is, but I think the two in combination was a big part and is a big part. So that's why that's why I think it's still there.
Yeah, I agree. Mark, any
Well,
thoughts?
I think along the same lines of what Dave just related to with, the Hillary meme. I think that it's a white hat production when you look at what they've been doing allegedly in Britain. You put up anything that's considered against the norm, and they come knocking on your door like it's Nazi Germany and arrest you. And
they literally come with like the videos of them like with the chainsaws and stuff like that. I mean, I look at that stuff. I'm like, really? Is that actually? I mean, I don't know.
And like I said, do I think it's real? No, I think it's all part of the narrative. But I mean, I've gotten several letters from YouTube, not letters, but online texts or emails or whatever, saying that your account's been suspended, blah, blah, blah. And then I'll do the show and find, okay, you just streamed to YouTube. So I don't know if I'm getting spoofed or what's going on, but look, there's always going to be somebody trying to censor what you're saying when you're putting out the unpopular view. But that's what our job is to put out the unpopular view. And had the MSM been doing what they were supposed to be doing all along, we wouldn't be trashing the MSM all the time.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, right now I'm not all that concerned about it because I mean it's TikTok, and when you think about what Dave just said, I mean that's exactly like one of the examples of a target audience that need to experience that censorship, right? But if it then bled into like X or Rumble, then I'd start to get a little concerned.
Yeah,
like, because then if we lose our voice, which by the way I don't think is going to happen, but if we lose our voice in our platforms, that's a whole different set of circumstances. But yeah, I mean, if as far as the stuff in the UK, I'm not in a position to say, and nobody is really like 100% like what's true and what's not. But like Dave has said, it's kind of, we've gotten to a point now where it's better to, if you can't verify something, like you hear all types of stuff, if you can't personally verify it as the truth, then it's probably better to err on the side of it being a psyop. Yeah. Especially if it's over the top, especially if it's getting all types of attention online. Those types of stories where they've clearly got their thumb on the scale there and they want everybody to see it. And it's pretty obvious in those situations to me, you're looking at a psyop. But that's not to suggest that every single thing is not real. When you hear these numbers, I mean, it's a pretty staggering figure, right? You hear about 12,000 people in 1 year.
Well, and that's, you know what, Patriot, let's play the other side of the coin. Let's say that is real, right? I actually think I said Israel. I did not mean to say Israel. I said, let's say that is real. Let me back up for a minute. Slow down. Let's say that's real. 12,000 people got arrested for social media. Okay, well, then you have to ask yourself, how did that get on the news? Because that's not the kind of thing the government would ever want in the news, right? We didn't get to hear about the millions of people crossing the border 10 years ago. We didn't get to hear about all the people that Obama had on his hit list, right? So then that's the flip side of it. Maybe it is to some degree. Maybe it's being amplified. But then the second question you got to ask yourself, maybe, sure, let's throw it out there. It's real. Okay. Why are we hearing about it? Because that's not the kind of thing the government wants to get out. That's the kind of thing they want to do quietly and without any attention. They don't want that in the headlines. So to me, either way, it works.
Yeah. And meanwhile, you've got, when Trump meets with Keir Starmer and he says, you got to stop censoring people. He's like, oh, we're not censoring anybody. Just off the cuff, oh, we're not censoring anyone. There's
and like a week later, he goes back and he's like, oh, by the way, you're all going to need digital ID. Otherwise, you're not allowed to work. Okay.
Yeah, right. Exactly. All right. So let's talk a little bit about Red October, because here we are, and this kind of opens things up to pretty much anything that you guys want to talk about in terms of where we're at right now. In addition to Israel, we spent a lot of time talking about Israel, but we've got stuff going on pretty much everywhere at this point. Even geopolitically, we've got Zelensky signaling a fake false flag on a European country, a drone attack to escalate the war. You've got Lavrov saying that NATO has declared open war on Russia. And that's, of course, in the geopolitical sphere. Then here at home, we've got the military deployments steadily increasing into the blue cities. We're in Portland, Memphis, Chicago. It all started, of course, with D.C. as the template. Fox News has pointed out, this is like a proof of concept about the Insurrection Act. I think that was just a clip today. And meanwhile, we've got Comey, the ADL. Well, this kind of ties in Israel as well, but Kash Patel came out today and basically said that they're severing the connection between the ADL and the FBI. It's already basically been confirmed that Comey ran a honeypot operation during the Trump campaign. There's been a lot of discussion on Fox News about whether or not Hillary might be next. Again, that's speculative, but they're putting that out there on Fox News. But the exposure operation being rolled out pretty much. I mean, John Solomon is on TV just about every night with this new breaking news story. So we've got RICO charges on the table now that Antifa has been designated as a terrorist organization. We've got JAG officers who have been called in to handle these quote unquote immigration cases. We had the massive meeting of the military generals at Quantico, attended by Trump. We had, and just today, Trump announced that the Department of War, as it's known now, is basically in a state of armed conflict with the cartels.
Yep.
And we've, of course, got the government shutdown. I heard you commenting on that last night with Mike, Dave, about that might be part of the meaning of Red October. It was pretty cool analysis. So, the list goes on and on. So I guess my question is somewhat speculative in nature, but given all of the things that I just laid out and more, what are you guys thinking might be the next shoes to drop? Some of the things that we might see play out in the not too distant future in terms of, the movie, the way that they're scripting all this out. Not in terms of timelines or expectations, but just in terms of events.
Well, I think what you just did, as you usually do, is you laid out a good list, and people that watch what like I've been doing with Rambo and these guys lately is like that's what I try to do. So try to go back because we good, bad, or indifferent. I think a lot of us at a certain point we're in a mindset where like you're waiting for a singular event, right? I'm waiting for this to happen, and while you're waiting for this to happen, you miss out on the pace, right? And it's like we're waiting to get to 88 miles an hour, but you're acting like we're still standing still. And meanwhile, the speedometer is going up and up and up and up and up every week. Anyone that denies that, I don't know. Maybe they don't have time to look at anything. And as far as Red October, like I don't know. Trump banged off a Q drop the morning of. It said, Red October, stay tuned, signed by Q Plus. He not only hit, actually, you know what, Patriot, if I could put that up real quick.
Sure.
This is how he started. My computer stops. There we go. This is exactly how he started the month. This was 11:01 p.m. on September 30th. So 11:01, convert that into military time, 23:01. Red October, stay tuned and watch, signed by Q Plus. It's also an exact 7-year delta. So he hit the timestamp and the date, 9:30, 9:30, 11:01, 23:01. That's how we started. So I don't think that's insignificant. But yeah, as far as like, is this Red October? like I said, ask me at the end of October, but you can't ignore everything you just laid out.
Yeah.
And like I said, what you were mentioning, I'll reiterate it very quickly. You think about Red October, and what did we start the month with? A government shutdown. And we had Trump going out there right away the day before saying, if there's a lot of things we can do to them that are irreversible. And he started talking about laying people off. And then I go, oh, wait a second. I see what's happening here. Of course, this is all by design. And now the media is following with it. So red, right? Red, what is the color when you get fired? Red. When there's a mass layoffs at a company, what is that called? It's a bloodbath. Red. Maybe another meeting of Red October that we didn't think of is the clean out of the government. We'll have to see. Certainly looks like it's going to happen that way.
Yeah.
And they're certainly seeding the narrative that way. Let's see what happens. But the other piece of it that you can't ignore, and this does actually tie into the whole Israel thing, right? Keep in mind that starting, I believe in the next I think Friday, either Friday or Monday, we have the Epstein depositions. It's funny,
Yes.
like that. It's funny. Didn't you just talk about Lutnick and all these guys bringing Epstein back up?
Yep.
Yeah, it's funny. That's all happening right as all these guys are about to go in for the Epstein depositions. Well, that also ties to
Right.
Israel as well, right?
Is it the Clintons are being deposed? I
You
think
have Merrick Garland. I can't remember if Comey was one. Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton. There's like 5 of them.
Yep.
So that's happening. And then you can't ignore all the military symbolism that you just laid out, right? The silent the Marine Silent Corps drilling on the front lawn of the White House at 8:00 at night. The same day Trump puts on an F-22 pin, drop 22, National Guard, Abraham Lincoln, right? Everything you laid out, the symbolic meeting. They certainly wouldn't pull all the generals into one room and announce it on the news. You wouldn't do that. That's a security risk. That was all theater.
Yep.
All the stuff you outlined. So it's, what is next? It's hard to predict. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't acknowledge the financial system. As we're sitting at all record highs again. You have silver hitting $48 an ounce. You have gold approaching 4,000. We know those are two of the things that break the banks. And again, I'm not of the mindset. I want to be very clear. Not of the mindset you're going to lose all your money if you have it in the bank. I don't play that game. But you do. You have Bitcoin just crossed another all-time high, 120,000 and something else. October is traditionally a month where if there's going to be some kind of blip in the system, it very often happens in October. I don't know how we get out of this. At a certain point, the Fed, which has gone quiet, the Fed conversation has to come back into it. So I guess I'm looking to see. I have three things I kind of keep my eye on. Number one, I think every one of these narratives, which is what we've seen for at least 3-4 months now, are just going to continue to get amplified. We're going to keep playing games with the Epstein stuff. When Trump did the press conference about the Tylenol, brilliant lead in with the Tylenol and the vaccines, the most well-known drug. He said within 2 months, they're going to be doing more. So that's not that far off already. That's 7 weeks away. You have that going on. Meanwhile, you have RFK out there dropping bombs every day on X. And I try to post as many of those videos as I can. So all this stuff, I look for all the narratives to continue to just keep turning up the volume. But in the meantime, the two pieces that we've kind of gotten away from, which I think are worth keeping an eye on, is the financial system. And again, I don't necessarily think the markets have to crash to zero or any of that kind of stuff. But at some point, we have to circle back, pardon the term, to the Fed. We were supposed to audit Fort Knox, like that. We got away from that. And again, I think that's obviously by design. We have to get back to the Fed conversation. And maybe an unpopular take, but I'm very much in the boat of, I think, if I had to put a timeline on it, between now and the end of the year in particular, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm in a mindset now where if I wake up tomorrow and find out so-and-so has been assassinated or so-and-so's plane's been shot down or whatever it is, okay, it's going to be Charlie Kirk 2.0, and we're going to start to point the finger at Israel again. So I don't necessarily know. I still don't know if it's like a scare event or a series of things, but it maybe seems like a lazy answer, but it's kind of more of the same. But I think we need to start weaving in the financial situation at a certain point.
No, I don't
That's
think
got
it's
to
a
come into play.
lazy answer at all. I think it's a very honest answer, and quite honestly, I agree with you. The longer we do this, and the more we talk about it, and again, I know I framed it in the sense of, oh, it's Red October, not in the sense of like trying to sensationalize it. Like, yes, it's Red October. It was referred to in the drops that way, but not in the sense that, oh, it's Red October. That means that things are going to necessarily happen, right? And the longer we do this, the more we realize that the conversation about what comes next is, in essence, it kind of like it loses a little bit of steam every time we get into it, because you're right, Dave. I mean, what it really comes down to is not so much, like you mentioned earlier, I always talk about the trajectory of the operation. It's not so much about when things happen, but it's about just noticing, right, that so many things are accelerating. I like that metaphor that you use. Like, we're maybe not at 88 miles an hour, but the speedometer keeps on going up. That's really, I think, is spot on. And as far as the economic stuff, the financial stuff, I might be mistaken about this, but I thought I saw that did a judge rule that that Trump couldn't fire Lisa Cook? I thought I had seen something around that.
It got kicked. It ruled that she stays until the Supreme Court is scheduled to hear it in January.
Okay, well, that'll be interesting.
That's the latest update that I've heard.
Okay, yeah, I was curious about that one. Yeah. All right, Mark, your take.
Well, I mean, I got to agree with Dave on the economic stuff, because that's been setting up for a long time. And I think there was a reason that they kind of baited the Democrats to shut the government down. I mean, they were throwing it in their lap, they're throwing it in their lap, they're throwing it in their lap. Again, it's something that they're throwing right in the people's faces. And they took the bait. They did it. And there were going to be repercussions from that. There were going to be, I think there were going to be a bunch of very, very unpopular moves made by the president during this time that he can pretty much so run amok as much as he wants to. On top of that, I have to look at the media, because you got all of this stuff going on. You had the government shut down. You had all of these shootings that have been happening. The alleged Kirk assassination, and just a bunch of other things. And I think that probably in the very, very close future, the return to the original Smith-Mundt Act is going to happen.
Mm.
And to me, it's going to be very, very curious how things are going to be handled, because all of the prior things that I just mentioned, the mainstream media has been spinning basically the way that they've always spun it, and going with the narrative that it was some right-wing lunatic and all this other crap, without, again, the basic definition of a journalist is ascertain the facts and deliver those facts to the public. You're not supposed to throw in your opinion. You're not supposed to assume. You're supposed to ascertain the facts. And when a lot of these things do get prejudged or thrown out there without proper information, that even though we've all been alleging that we have control of the mainstream media, and I believe that we do, but that narrative has to be shown more and more, because we got to show the people that these people are a bunch of liars. They've been lying to you for a long time. So I think a lot of these things coming out, and the manner in which they're coming out, and them spinning it much in the same old way, is hurting them, number one. And number two, when Smith-Mundt gets returned to its original format and they continue to lie, I'm curious to see how that's going to be handled. Because that's going to be a whole other realm of entertainment. And, I think that economically, just like Dave said, with gold and silver going up and reaching points that they had kind of slated for the end of the year, and we're probably going to meet those numbers sooner than the end of the year. And the fact that in conjunction with the shutdown of the government, it's a brand new fiscal year. And you're starting that fiscal year in not just Red October, but in the red.
Mm.
So it's a very, very interesting series of things that are going on.
Yeah.
And because we're not privy to what they're going to do, exactly what parts of the script they're going to keep in, what parts of the script they're going to cut out, and when they're going to enact those parts, we're just kind of left to sit back with the popcorn and watch the show.
Yeah.
And I think that it's going to be a very fun watch. I mean, anybody who's looked at this seriously over the past bunch of months needs to wake up a little bit more. But anybody who's been sitting back and watching the show, God, it's been just out of this world.
Well, it's super freeing too when you get to a point when you realize that basically everything that you're watching is a psyop.
Mhm.
And not only that, when you finally accepted that military intelligence has the capabilities to pull off just about anything. I mean, it's more a question of like, what can they not pull off? Right? Like what's too big? It's almost like when you arrive at that place and you realize the sky truly is the limit, that they can create any illusion that they want to. It really is freeing. It lifts a huge weight. I mean, and again, it's not to suggest that there aren't times, because we're all human, that we may not get sucked back into certain elements of it, on an emotional level, like I mentioned with Charlie Kirk. Like that happened to me briefly. Didn't last very long, but still, I mean, we still might be susceptible to that. But I've said this many times, I think that's really what this whole journey is about for Anons, is learning how to disengage from our emotions and learning how to, like Boone Cutler famously said, protect your mind, control your emotions. Like when you get to that point and you couple that with the sky is the limit in terms of what they can, the illusions that they can create, it really does become somewhat fun to sit back and watch the show, and you have an entirely different attitude about it. And it's not so much about it's not so much about speculating about when is this going to happen, when's this going to happen, or what, and because I can say from my own personal experience, before I arrived at that place, that was really kind of my mentality. I was looking at everything and trying to figure out, is this the trigger? Is this the trigger? This has to be the trigger. And it's like you're playing whack-a-mole until you understand that what you're watching and the reasons that you're watching it are entirely different than what you thought. So,
well, even the one thing that all three of us left out, AI. Okay. Everything now is about AI, and Trump bringing in all of these, billions of dollars in investment into AI, and companies opening up AI, and China getting it all everywhere around the world. And my opinion, I truly believe that AI, because of its inherent dangers, is the president's new Fauci.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean.
President has a habit of putting front and center that which he wants to expose and bring down. He did it with Fauci.
I don't think you're bringing down AI, my friend.
I don't know
I agree with you on the exposure, but I look at it more as an education. Look, dude, AI has been here for 15 years. It's not going anywhere. But I agree with you as far as putting it front and center. Absolutely, 100%. Exposing it, yes, 100%. It's not going away. It would be like us saying in '95 the internet's is going away. It's not. It's too powerful. But I believe what he's trying to do, Mark, personally, is if they had been allowed to roll out AI the way they wanted to, by the time it got to our desks, it would have been too powerful and we wouldn't have known about it. It would have been running our lives. I think by bringing it front and center now, what it's doing is it's giving us the opportunity to get up to speed on it. I mean, I spend my entire day practically in Perplexity or ChatGPT now, and I wasn't just about a year ago. It's a powerful tool, but it's just like Google. You don't just believe it. And we've done some shows on it. So I think that's part of the. I believe that they have solutions on the other side of this thing that will prevent some of the bad things in AI. I believe they're going to have a way to know if videos are fake. Like, we can't just have a world where you turn on the TV and you don't know what's real. I think there's a plan for that. But I think, to your point, we're in the exposure, like, educate yourself, learn you can't trust it. I see things every day that get put out there, like by Grok, that I almost think they're putting out on purpose to show people the fallacies of it and the flaws in it. And they want us to learn, because there's too much power in the good side. And it's obviously outside the scope of what we're talking about tonight. There's way too much power medically, financially. I mean, in a million different ways, there's too much power in the good side of it. But if Trump wasn't here, I don't think we'd have half these tools right now.
Yep.
To your point, I think the reason that it's been literally, if you go back, I mean, AI really, the pedestrian version of it, right? ChatGPT, Perplexity, all these things, they're all basically in the last like 3-4 years. It's all gone crazy. I don't think it would have happened that way. I don't think we'd even have it right now. I think they'd have their version of it. I think the big corporations would have their versions of it. It would be weaponized against us. Pattern recognition, like the bad things, like maybe, if you don't, like we know that they're going to do things with Mike King talks about this all the time with the climate agenda, where if you didn't, do your climate, and they would have been using AI to track us. And they did, by the way, they did. That's where all the censorship came from. YouTube and Facebook and all that. What do you think was censoring you in 2017 and 2019? It wasn't some dude in China sitting there hitting a button. That was voice recognition, photo recognition, AI.
Yep.
And what's tracking you everywhere you go.
Yeah. So I think you're right. Where I would personally, respectfully disagree. I don't think it's going anywhere, but I think you're absolutely right. I think it's a big part of teaching everybody. I think they were going to try to sneak it in on us, and I think that they're trying to quickly educate people on the good and the bad, and that's why it's such a topic of discussion. You were at an event with me where General Flynn did a whole thing on it. And when General Flynn's going out to the people and making a point to talk about something, that it's going to be an important narrative. So yeah. It's very interesting.
It's part of the exposure operation too, right? It's like, on the one hand, because the way I look at AI is it's a tool like any other, right? It can be used either to enslave us, or it can be used basically to serve us, right? And I think the white hat agenda is to obviously have it be the latter, but at the same time to educate everybody in terms of what the deep state plan was, in terms of what the dangers are. The whole idea is with AI, just like with everything else, they want people to be awake and aware, and they want people to be paying attention and engaged in terms of what is being rolled out by the government, by the big corporations, by big pharma, by big food. I mean, it's like, even though we're going in the right direction, part of it is exposing all of the evil through all of these psyops to get people to actually, participate. Like they didn't the Q drop say something along those lines, like only at the precipice will people
find the will to change and participate. Yeah.
It was something along those lines. Yeah. And I think that's really what it is. It's kind of like you have to, in some ways, you have to scare people to shake them out of their apathy. And I think that's part of what we're seeing there with AI as well. And I also think, Mark, you made a really great point about Smith-Mundt. And I wondered about that, because it's being talked about more and more when it goes back, when the modernization goes back. And, we were actually chatting about this a little bit before the show, about how Obama kind of had the gun to his head back in 2012 or 11, somewhere around there. And this is what you're going to do, because the White Hats had this whole reverse psyop operation already really set to go operational at that time. But if it goes back to the Smith-Mundt Act of old, and it's no longer legal to propagandize and to run psyops on the American people, what are the implications of that, right? So one of them, I think you spoke of, which was that, well, the mainstream media in the context of the movie continues to lie, even in the face of the Smith-Mundt Act being reverted back to its original. That's I suppose, one implication, but then we could kind of look at it even on a deeper level, which is, I mean, Q told us everything had to be done by the book. So does that mean that at that point that the psyops have to end? The movie has to end. I'm kind of curious, how that's going to play out. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
It's funny. You made the same exact point. I think it was Paul Fleury, Absolute 1776. I can't remember who it was. Made that exact point. I think it was him on one of our roundtables, or it might have been on his show. I don't remember where it was. That perhaps, and we were kind of bouncing off the same theory that Mark has there. Like, what happens if you end it? That perhaps, if we're even getting to the point, and to remind the audience, it was Donald Trump that retruthed a very viral video of a young lady speaking about the Smith-Munn Act about a week and a half ago. He's the one that I'm sorry, didn't retruth it. He posted it. He took a video, posted it. It wasn't even a repost. And that kicked off this national conversation. It was trending on X. Everyone was all of a sudden digging into Smith-Munn. The theory is, yeah, if we're talking about ending that, does that mean we're getting near the end of the movie? I don't know, because here's the thing. I actually agree in theory with look, I believe, let me back up, because it gets difficult. We're talking about two different things, right? There's what actually happened and then what's going to get presented to the public. Like, what do I believe actually happened? Executive Order 13818, Executive Order 13848, war powers, pick one. The media colluding with the media can say whatever the hell they want, technically. It's when they take direction from the government and the intelligence agencies, and they knowingly say they caught them dead to right. I think back in like 2017 or 2018 when Q put up that list of all the people, all the major network pundits that had colluded with Hillary in 2016. So that kind of lets you know that they had them nailed dead to right in the 2016 election. So I think realistically, they caught all these people a long time ago. I think when Trump says he caught them all, he means the media too. He has them legally. But to Mark's point, like, how are they they can't tell the country, well, we caught him 8 years ago. We're telling you now that's not going to work. So how do you present it legally? And that's legally by military standards. So how do you present it legally to the public? Mark's route could be one. Maybe they do repeal Smith-Munn, and then they start catching them in lies. Q did say libel laws and the MSM. I don't know. The difficult thing in it is, although we did see an increase in psyops after Smith-Munn, and we're using it to our advantage now, they were doing it before that too. We can give you a whole host of things that happened before 2012. I don't know, but I think you bring up an important point, Patriot, that the fact that it's at least being discussed. And actually, as we sit here, I just see there's another trailer going around by Sean Ryan. Doesn't matter what you think about Sean Ryan. He's got millions of impressions about a whole new series he's starting about PsyOps, like a whole documentary about PsyOps, and it's getting all sorts of traction. So the fact that maybe we're getting near these conversations is telling. And one other little nugget that I do think matters. I get to talk to a good amount of people around here now, and people are going to say, oh, you live in Florida, it's red. Okay, sure. But I've noticed a trend over the last month or two where I have a couple of places I go that I'll sit at the bar by myself, I'll eat dinner, leave. And and I don't tell people what I do. People have kind of figured it out. One person sees something, and I think it was Mark saying it before about how people, and Patriot, you're saying it too, about how crazy things have gotten, that it's causing this confusion amongst people. And it's gone from like, oh, that the guy over there, he seems like he knows stuff, to like the other day I walk in, it was the middle of the afternoon, and I got surrounded by 5 people. Normies. But they have all hit the point, and they're all kind of different stages, but they've all hit the point where they're like, I can't make sense of anything anymore. And to me, that's very telling. 2 things: that, the confusion, and then the second thing is, no matter where you go, it's almost like, you say something to somebody, and they start talking, and then they, like Mark was doing before, they look around, they go, did you know Israel was behind it? and then like they kind of check to see if anybody looks, and then like 3 other people are like, yeah. So my point is to the people that are watching, like it is working. Like it may be it may be tiresome for all of us, but I think we have finally hit a point these last few months where people are ready to look, and maybe they might not be ready to look at the things you want to show them or I want to show them. But people are confused as hell, and typically when the mind gets confused, it's going to want to keep digging, and I think that's an important thing to look for as we move forward.
No, I agree. I mean, if you go back to the conversations that we had in the fake Biden era, they were very, very different than the ones that we're having now, right?
Yeah.
And the psyops have seemingly, they've accelerated massively. I mean, sure, the whole Biden era was a psyop. We know that, right? But at that time, it was a very different conversation, because now everything has just become so accelerated that, and there's so many different storylines going on at the same time. And I mean, heck, it's hard enough for us to keep up with all of it. And we have a pretty solid basis in Q and an understanding of what's going on to a degree that we, without knowing the script and all that. But you can only imagine inside of the mind of the normies what they're experiencing, without any context, right? I mean, it's like we at least have the context to be able to analyze it and to somewhat make sense of what the white hats are doing. But these people don't even know there are white hats. They don't. I mean, they think that everything that they're seeing is just organically playing out. As you can imagine, what's going on inside their minds, and I think that's really the whole design, right? Is to just scramble people's eggs to such a degree that they finally just, it's like they break out of their matrix, but they do it on their own initiative, and then they start seeking out other sources of information. And the whole time, of course, the white hats are just continuing to feed that information to create the illusion that that they're waking up on their own. But I think that's really it's like I was saying about fear. To a certain degree, people need an element of fear to break out of their apathy. They also need a significant amount of that cognitive dissonance to break down their matrix.
Right.
And I think that's what we're seeing, which is really exciting. And the fact, I mean, heck, we spent a solid hour or so talking about Israel tonight. We've always talked about Israel, but just, I mean, we could have gone on. I mean, I had like 5 or 6 more clips. I just didn't want to spend the entire show talking about Israel. But the fact is that, I mean, literally it's everywhere now. I mean, so that to me is very, very encouraging. The fact that Smith-Mundt is being discussed and people are starting to dig into that, like you said, Dave. And I mean, a few months ago, you say Smith-Mundt Act to somebody, a Smith-Mundt Modernization Act, they wouldn't have a clue the hell you were talking about. And now all of a sudden, people are going to start looking into it and go, wait a minute, you mean it's legal for them to lie to us on the news? What?
Yeah, and we actually, Patriot, we purposely did a whole breakdown of that, because if you read, then the next thing that happened is there's people that heard of the Smith-Mundt Act and they tried the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act, and they tried telling you, no, it doesn't actually say that. BS. We actually went through line by line and did an entire breakdown. The way it's written on the surface, it looks like it's that way. But then when we break it down, you'll see, as only lawyers could do, they left like 17 backdoors and loopholes in the thing. So when you read it in the surface, it's like, you can't do this in the United States, except this, under this category.
Yep.
So that was the other thing that they tried to do, as usual, which is what the intelligence agencies do best, is we discover something and then they figure out a way. They have their disinformation agents and the bots that come in and try to do these, and they do these long podcasts. Why everyone listening to the Smith-Mundt? It's all no, it's 100% true. It's filled with loopholes.
Yeah, you read the legalese, and that's where you get all the good stuff. Yeah,
and that's the purpose of it, because when you sit and you think, and anybody questions me on it about well, they'll hold all these reporters and anchors and writers and producers responsible for all the crap that they put out about COVID and this and that and the other. No, they won't, because one of those loopholes, in spite of them spreading absolute BS, you've got a law that says, yeah, you could do that.
Right.
But once that's repealed and brought back to its original form, it's like, come on, try it now. Let's see how far you get. And that's what I'm waiting for, because you have no idea. I mean, look, I was in the business for 46 years. I can honestly tell you that it was after I retired that I learned about the Modernization Act. And I can guarantee you 90% of the people that I work with and that I worked with have no idea what the hell the Smith-Williams Act is. Never mind the modernization.
And I think what needs to come into play at some point, and it's another thing I would just, if I were writing this, and I'm definitely not, none of us here are on Q team, but if I were writing this, going back to like the false flags, I would have some kind of false flag event, maybe a school shooting, maybe like a Sandy Hook replay, and I would catch them all in the process of it. I would catch every last one of them. The intelligence agencies, the crisis actors, the media, all in one thing. It's all BS. Something to that effect, because we still don't have. It's happening a little bit with the Charlie Kirk thing, but we people still cannot wrap their head around the notion that like things that you live through, like Sandy Hook, like entire events and the people could be. Again, that goes back to what we were talking about with Tucker, kind of leading people in. You try sitting down and telling people that nobody died at Sandy Hook, glaze over.
Oh yeah,
They're going to glaze over. They can believe that the media. So that what I'm wondering and watching for, just to circle back on this, is like what could they do that could once and for all really teach people just how scripted and false. I mean, people say I know a lot of people that throw on fake news, but I'm like, you have no idea how fake it is. And if I tried telling you, you would glaze over and I'd get a blank stare. So if I were writing it, General Flynn, listen, I might, do something like that. Like have some kind of major event, maybe not even school shooting, but something where you catch at least some of the people and the media colluding to do it in the act, and it gets exposed. Because once people see that, whoa, if I saw this with my own eyes, then everything else becomes possible.
yeah. That could be a really interesting moment, really interesting icebreaker moment. I think the way I look at it, I mean, you just look at the Charlie Kirk thing, for example. There's people out there dissecting this story. There were people doing it on day one, right? But even now, a few weeks later, or well, close to a month later, like 3 weeks later, even it's even bleeding into sort of like the MAGA mainstream to a certain degree. Like people are these I wouldn't call them anons, but podcasters and pundits and things like that, who kind of fall into the MAGA normie category, right? Yep. Where they're now starting to point out all these things and all of these anomalies, right? It always starts with the anons, and then of course it trickles down. But part of the issue is that as long as Trump and the powers that be go along with the narrative of the psyop, right? There are people who are never going to believe otherwise, right? And so that's the other part of it too. Is I wonder if there's ever going to be I mean, the situation you described there, Dave, where like they run a false flag, and who knows, maybe Trump goes along with it, everybody goes along with it, but then what's then the trigger point, or like the linchpin that kind of unravels the whole story? Because most people, even if it's ridiculous on its face, as we've seen over and over and over again, if Trump is sending out his condolences and Cash and Pam are saying, we're going to investigate all this, and it's like they're propping up the narrative, people are going to believe it. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of wonder
if we keep going the way we're going. One of the things that we've had a lot of conversation around, I'm sure you've noticed it as well. A lot of the callers on our Friday night call-in show have noticed. I think everyone's noticed that it appears that the psyops have gotten, each one gets more sloppy than the next one.
Very true.
I think everyone's noticed that, and I'm pretty sure everyone would probably agree that that's not an accident, because they could make us believe that our own mother was standing in the room next to us as a hologram if they wanted to, right? Why? They want people to dig. So to your point, Patriot, again, maybe it's a slow roll, but if they keep if you take a Charlie Kirk type of thing and you keep making it more absurd, which they seem to do every day, that's why we have to keep talking about it, because they add something new every day. Who knows what else they're going to do with that? But then if another one comes, You know, you go back to the Minneapolis shooting, that was sloppy, and then this gets more sloppy, and they keep getting more sloppy. Then eventually you get there. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Pattern
there are a
recognition.
lot, even in this one, there's a lot of people already doing what you're saying on this one. Nobody buys the official FBI narrative. So everyone's going, well, I guess Cash is compromised too. And I don't know, maybe that's his role, is to be a temporary fall guy. We talked about Trump doing it, which is why I don't get emotional. But Cash is compromised. No, he's not. No, he's not. No, he's not. He's no more compromised than Trump. But maybe that's the role he's got to play. Maybe Bongino, that's the role he's got to play. Who knows? But if we keep going and getting more sloppy with these things, eventually, who knows? Might just happen organically.
People are, you're right. I mean, people are questioning the narrative in terms of, like, you know, the Tyler Robinson thing and this and that, but they're not questioning whether it was just a staged event, right? And just in terms of, like, Normieville, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and that you might be right. It could just be it has to go through a series of, like, pattern recognition. You know, it just gets sloppier and sloppier and sloppier. I mean, who knows? Maybe eventually they'll shoot someone and it'll, like, I don't know, like, there'll just be no blood at all. I mean, that was the biggest tell.
Right. Yeah.
It was like, got 30-06 would have blown his head off. And there was,
Right.
I mean, there was absolutely not a drop of blood
Right.
on his shoes. There wasn't a drop of blood on that banner behind him. You could see.
And then they
with-
doubled down with the Man of Steel narrative. And that sent
Right.
every military guy and hunter I've seen online to lose their mind. Like,
Yeah.
Look, and maybe that becomes the new norm. Maybe for the next few months or year, like, maybe the increasingly crazy psyops become the norm, and more people start digging. And if you think that's crazy, right? Think about, as we sit here today, we are sitting here with thousands of people that pretty much all universally agree that an assassination we watched on television didn't happen. Like, think about that for a minute. If I had told you that 5 years ago, you would have said I'm crazy. Give you another example. Patriot, you know this better than anybody. How many years do we sit around? Where's the military? When's the military coming in? When's martial law? Meanwhile, Trump just added 2 more cities, and everyone's like, oh, yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah.
You see how quickly we get conditioned to things?
Exactly.
If Patriot Underground had come on his podcast in 2022, and I'm sitting there laying in New York City, and he said, oh, I'm here to tell you the military is going into Memphis, we all would have been celebrating. Now it's normal. So it just shows you how quickly crazy town can be normalized to everybody.
That's so true. And I've thought about that a lot. You know, it's like even the Comey indictment, like, that was something that we were all just kind of like, okay, great. That's a good sign, you know, but like, you know, a year ago we would have been doing backflips on camera. You know, that's true. I mean, it's funny.
Well, another one of the things that we're looking at, and I just looked at it the other day. I don't know why it didn't click with me before. But I forget her name, the girl on the train in North Carolina, the Ukrainian girl.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, right.
If you look, not at the clip that they show on Normieville TV, but if you look online or anything, for the full video, she's been stabbed in the neck half a dozen times to a dozen times.
And she kind of, like, looks at him as he's walking away.
Well, no, but she goes like this. There isn't a drop of blood anywhere. And then last night or the night before, they put on some of the 911 calls.
Yeah.
Nobody sounded too terribly upset.
Yeah. I think she might be dead. What?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
This dude just stabbed her in. Okay. You know, not screaming and ranting and raving like you would expect if somebody just witnessed that.
Yeah.
So there are so many.
Reminds me of the subway burning too.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
Remember that one?
Yeah. or the remember the mass shooting in the New York City subway where the guy ripped off like 47 shots inside a subway car and managed to not hit one window.
God. No, I think you're right, though. I think it's probably going to be more of the same. It's just going to get more and more crazy. And, you know, eventually people are just enough people are going to start digging in. That's the question that never, I'm never able to fully relinquish in my mind. Like, what's going to be the breaking point, you know, for people? or the turning point, whatever you want to call it. You know, like what is it going to take for people to finally go, holy crap, this is all fake, you know, to get to the point where we're at, you know?
It's, you know,
Or maybe not where we're at, but at least to start going down that road and realizing that this is fake.
So
Like,
I think what you're saying is to kind of get to the point of, let's call it Sandy Hook awake. That's where, if you ask me personally, like where, like the public's never going to know that. I don't think the public's ever going to know that Trump didn't get shot or anything. There's just, I don't see how that's possible. Maybe, I don't know. But when people ask me like, well, what level do you think the public's going to get to? I would think they can get to an understanding of something like a Sandy Hook, where they realize that you could have watched something, got emotionally pulled on TV, and they were crisis actors, and the media was in on it, and the government told them to do it. I think that we have to get to that point.
we have to, right?
how many people didn't believe you when you said there was no way in hell that a camera could catch the bullet going past his head?
Oh, people would argue all day long about that.
I mean, a camera could. That camera couldn't. There is a camera that could do that.
I slowed it down to 1/64th of a second. If you ain't gonna see it there, you ain't gonna see it.
Yeah,
You know,
it's absurd.
Not to mention the ballistic gel test. You remember that when they reenact that, and like, I mean, just the force of that round, just the force itself would have ripped his ear off. Yeah. And it looked like he nicked it, you know, like cut it shaving in like 3 days.
I'm a fast healer.
So what did you guys? All right, I have to ask you about this. So what did you make of the? Because this got a lot of attention. The truth, the medbed truth, and the CBD stuff. I think it's worth talking about that. Not necessarily, you know, I don't want to have a whole conversation about like med beds, but in terms of, you know, why you think Trump posted that? What's he saying?
I can say it quickly, personally. I'll say quickly what I believe. I noticed it right away, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, you have to be kidding me. Now, why do I think that there's more to that than meets the eye? First of all, he took it down, which actually gave it more attention, because then
it was up for like what, 10 hours?
Something like that.
Yeah.
And then subsequently, I think it was yesterday or the day before, I'm blanking on her name, was asked about it in the press. Caroline, thank you.
Yeah.
Was asked about it, and she danced around it too. I believe there's more to it. Donald Trump, if you remember, in 2020, I believe, he made some kind of reference. It was in June of 2020. He made some reference to the medical system, and he made some reference to most of the things in the hospitals being obsolete in a few years.
Yeah, he said something like, you don't know it, but you're not going to need hospitals anymore. Something
right. Something along those lines.
Yeah.
Now, I'll be very quick. Do I believe that something like a med bed, an advanced healing technology exists? Absolutely. Do I proof it? No. But one of the things you'll notice that I don't talk about a lot on NewsTreason are med beds. Why? Because I know a lot of people, and there's thousands of people in our community that are dealing with health problems. We do a call. Patriot, I know you get the emails. Mark, you get the emails. We do a call-in show. We hear about it in real time. Right. It would be irresponsible of me to get on the air and make some kind of claim to people who are desperate for something that I can't prove or back up.
I can't agree more.
Because of that, knowing that Donald Trump doesn't do anything by accident, and knowing that the people that run his social media account, because it's not him, are well aware of what goes on in our community and the talk about med beds and all the false promises and all that. I personally don't believe that they would put that out there for what? To troll us, to make fun of us?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Some people have theorized that they're trying to show us how crazy AI is. I don't think they would use something like med beds to prove a point about AI, because of the false hope it would give to the people in the truth community.
I agree.
So what does it mean? I don't know, but I think it's a wink and a nod. I'll just leave it at that. That there's something better coming.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And I used to have guests on who would, talk about med beds and early on in my journey. And I didn't know much about it myself. It was kind of like, wow, that really, they can regrow organs and they can regrow limbs and they can, all of these things. And it was like, it was mind blowing to me. But that was really before I kind of had that sense of responsibility, Dave, that you're talking about now. Is like early on in my journey, I was just learning, so I was just doing these podcasts, but I look at it very differently now because, again, if you can't substantiate these things and you're putting it out there as if it is true, it kind of puts you, to me, it feels irresponsible at bare minimum to give people that sense of false expectations of something that, I may believe that they exist, but if I can't prove that they exist and there are people out there who are genuinely suffering, it doesn't feel right to talk about on a regular basis. However, that being said, the fact that Trump, and I completely agree with you. I've said this many times about trolling because people say that, he was trolling when he put the medbed video out, or he was trolling when he retweeted that post about Biden being executed and replaced with a clone, or he was, I don't believe that Trump does that to his base. He trolls, yes, but he trolls the enemy. He trolls the normies. He doesn't troll us. And I don't think he would ever be so, that would be a pretty cruel thing to do, to put something out like that from the president of the United States, knowing full well how much attention it was going to garner and how it was going to create a stir within our community. And the hope, or I guess if it were trolling, the false hope that it would be giving all these people out there who are desperate for a cure. I just simply do not believe that Trump would do that.
Patriot, let me ask you a question. You have tens of thousands of people that follow you on social media. When you're writing, and you're a very eloquent speaker and writer, right? You put out some amazing posts. You write something with a certain take, right? That tens of thousands of people are going to see. Do you just like rip it off and then, like, if you made a mistake, not fix it if you can, or then if you realize you got something factually wrong, you put do you just ignore it? Like, do you not think about what you write? Do you not read it like 5-6 times before you hit post? Of course you do.
Yeah.
Right. So people would have to believe that Donald Trump or his team said, "Oh, here's a cool AI video." And nobody for 10, 12 hours picked up on the fact that it was insensitive to. I just don't, the kind of precision this stuff operates with, timestamps to the second and 7-year deltas and all this stuff. And nobody picked up on, that's a little insensitive. Is it possible? Sure. I have a very, very difficult time believing that's the case.
Yeah, I agree. And I'll go to Mark in a second, but Caroline Levitt, she used an interesting word when she was asked about, because you're right, she did pretty much dance around it saying, the president he sees things online that he likes and he shares things. But she said he's the most transparent president in history, which I found to be very interesting, right? So to associate that word transparency with with this whole concept of these advanced healing modalities. To me, I think I have to agree with you. I think it was a wink and a nod. Again, doesn't mean I'm going to start doing full-blown shows on med beds, but I think it gives a lot of weight to the concept, the idea that this type of technology does exist. And whether or not, we're going to see it in the short term or the long term, who knows? That's anybody's guess. It's speculative like anything else. But to me, that was pretty huge. I have to say the fact that post went up, and it wasn't up for like 30 seconds. It was up for multiple hours. They wanted it to gain traction.
Yep.
And you think about it from that perspective, and then to have the White House spokeswoman, use the word transparency in association with it, not, saying that they exist or anything like that, but just putting that out there. I found that to be quite fascinating.
Yep.
So, Mark, your thoughts?
Well, look, I've got to agree with what Dave said and what you were saying. There's the point of insensitivity. Having been an engineer by trade, the Earth is a magnet. We are the body electric. I'm sure everybody out there, every patriot out there has seen some of the demonstrations of Tesla's experiments, including the anti-grav stuff. Okay, all these things are out there. We've learned over the past few years different healing modalities, how frequency does affect healing, does affect your mood and everything else. Resonance and dissonance, just in music. So when you look at it, I have zero doubt about the fact that med beds do exist. I don't think that he would be putting it out there when there are so many of us, so many patriots out there who have been crying, waiting for this to happen. You know, the hell with the money, the hell with all, bring out the med beds, because you're seeing people dying needlessly, which before we would have looked at as just part of life, part of getting older. But now they know that there is something there. And we don't know how it works. We don't know why it works. We don't know what it does. Does it grow back limbs and organs? Who knows? Can it regress your age? Who knows? These are all things that truthers have been putting out there since they first heard the word medbed. Okay? Part of what makes Telegram much like the MSM now. Okay? But facts being what they are, they do have these advanced healing modalities. They do have these advanced transportation modalities and everything else. The healing modalities are so relevant to so many people nowadays, especially since the jab.
Yep.
And when you put it out there and you see how many people, how many kids have autism, what we went through, the discussion we went through on Saturday, okay, with BB, you know, the kids with autism, the kids who are examples of childhood cancer, other people having all kinds of heart problems and blood problems and cancers and, you know, myocarditis and this and that and the other, and pericarditis. There are so many things that are happening rapid fire that weren't happening before. I don't think that he would purposely do something like that to give a, you know, in your face. I don't think so.
Yep. I don't believe for a second he would either. You know, just like when he went to the Bitcoin conference and he said, you know, don't ever sell your Bitcoin, like the golden rule of Bitcoin. Would he then just like rug pull after that and Bitcoin goes down to zero? I mean, I don't see it that way. Right.
No.
And, you know, I think it's best to just take a very kind of balanced approach on this, but even if you want to stay centered in the drops, I mean, I think it was drop 694 said, well, you know, what if, right? There are no real questions in the Q drops. What if cures already exist?
That's right.
And you know, he also put out the CBD video, you know, that whole thing followed shortly after, which again, another AI generated video, but to me, it was almost like an exclamation point. You know, it was kind of like, oh, that wasn't a mistake. Here's another one just to just to show you that you know this was done for a reason. But I think they're signaling good stuff to come, and I agree with you, Mark. And I mean, especially after the the COVID era, the jab, and all of these horrific things that are coming to light. I mean, Dave, you know, you talked about the shot heard around the world. I mean, the weight of this disclosure. You have to believe that the white hats have and have always had, let's just say, I mean, I hesitate to use the word antidotes or anything along those lines, but they have ways of dealing with the fallout of all of these, the means of dealing with the fallout of all that's been inflicted upon us. I do believe that to be the case, but I'm not going to speculate about what they can and can't do, because again, you hear people exaggerating on those things, and it's, for the reasons that we already went over. I don't think it's responsible to do that, but very, very exciting though. So, all right, we're getting to be kind of it. We're 2.5 hours. So I think we should probably wind this down at this point. So this was fun. I really enjoyed this conversation.
It always is.
It always is, right? Yeah. We always find it. I said to Dave, we can just kind of freestyle it tonight. I mean, we kind of had a basic idea of where we're going to start, but then it always goes in interesting directions. And I'm certainly looking forward to being on your platform next couple of weeks. So let's have some final thoughts, gentlemen, and then we'll sign off for the night.
Age before beauty.
Yeah, man, it's been. I thought this was great. It seems like the chat really enjoyed it. Obviously, want to thank everybody who tuned in as always and supports all of us and what we do. But yeah, it's been far too long since we did this. And Mark and Patriot, you're two people that normally, if you said, "Oh, just hop on and do a podcast at 7 o'clock and we'll figure out what we're going to talk about," I'd be like, no, let me prepare 90 things to clips and slides and everything else. And I can echo what you said when we talked. We're like, all right, we'll freestyle it. And I know that we've been going for 2 hours and 40 minutes. We could easily go another 2.5. There's a bunch of stuff we didn't even get to, but that's what I love about these shows. And that's why I'm so happy that we're going to be able to hopefully be doing this consistently. I guess the next one would be 2 weeks from today, whatever that date is, somewhere around the 14th, 15th, whatever that is. 16th. That would be the next one. And back and forth. And like I said, this way, in the event somebody gets sick or God forbid has an emergency or something, we're not going 5 months. So I'm really looking forward as we go into what I think we all agree, especially, and I don't like putting time on anything, but I think we're all in agreement that particularly now through the end of this year, one way or another is going to be an absolutely wild ride. It already has been this year, and it's certainly ramping up. So it's going to be fun to sit here with you guys every couple of weeks and dissect all this stuff. And I'm really looking forward to it. So as always, Patriot, thanks for hosting tonight. Thanks for quarterbacking. He makes it look easy. It's not that easy to sit here and freestyle something and have follow-up questions, everything ready. He plays it off like it's easy and it comes naturally, but it is not easy to be the one quarterbacking the show. So compliments to you, as always, my friend, for hosting. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, brother. Well, I appreciate it. I mean, you make it look easy too with all of your, your brilliant analysis too. The points that Dave makes. I mean, I'm just like, I'm consistently, I've said it all along. I mean, that when we first got together, I mean, I've told the story many times, but I saw a video of Mark, and at that point you were on a different platform or you were just kind of transitioning, and I'd never seen you guys before, and when I saw Mark, I didn't know that the two of you guys work together. And then, it's like, so I started to check out your channel and I was like, holy crap, these guys, I really want to work with these guys. And I reached out to you. And I guess at the time, Mark was trying to reach out to me. I don't know if it was Mark or it was you, Dave, but one of you guys were trying to reach out to me. So I think that was interesting. It was like, we were both trying to connect at the same time. And, it's always great. We get together and, we just feed off of each other's energy, and it's easy to come up with the follow-up questions when you're dealing with people like yourselves who are just brilliant minds, because you say things that trigger thoughts for me or follow-up questions that I just naturally have. I've learned so much from both of you guys, so I appreciate the kind words, my friend, and right back at you. I've said many times, man, you're one of the heavyweights, and you're proving it more and more as time goes on. So kudos to you, man.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate that.
Patriot, I can't say it enough. I just said it a few days ago, and I'll say it again. It's always, always, always a pleasure, and it's always a very, very interesting and enthusiastic discussion. I love it. I know the people love it, and it's a lot of fun, and I think we get to miss a lot more topics than we get to discuss, but it's always a great conversation because there is so much that we could input into it. And there's so much that we could talk about. And so you miss a couple of topics, there'll be another few topics that we're going to miss the next time too, but it's always great. It's always fun with the three of us. And it's true. It's been much too long. So I'm glad that we're going to be doing this every 2 weeks. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's too bad we can't push the next one, a day forward and have it on 17th.
17th.
Yeah. Well, I knew we'd find our way back to each other, and how it goes. It's just, I had to cancel a show for I think maybe twice. I remember one time I got like vertigo or something like that, or there was another time I wasn't feeling well. So a couple of them were on me, in all honesty. But that's how it goes.
I think we had a string where it was like back and forth. It was so.
Yeah, right. But I knew we'd find our way back to each other. And, it really is. It's an amazing, I mean, you can see it in the comments, everybody says, it's just great vibe, great rapport between the three of us. and we work well together. And you know, it's going to be great to get back into that normal pattern. Actually, we never really had a normal pattern. We were kind of going like back and forth every other month, but this is going to be even more frequent. So we'll get into a nice little rhythm. And you're right. I mean, it's one hell of a ride, honestly. And I think back to when we first connected with each other. I want to say I think it was like January of 2024. It was like really early, or
I think
maybe
it was about March.
Was it
about
March?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And
'Cause
wow,
we first went on in February, and when it happened, the discussion that you saw was the very first respect that I did on the platform.
okay.
Very
Yeah.
first show.
Yeah.
So it was,
They sent me this clip of like, oh, check out this Mark guy, and I was like, whoa, all right. I was like, okay, I like picking up what he's putting down. And then I wanted to check out your channel, and I was like, okay, yeah, I gotta work with these dudes. But yeah, the point is that, you know, going back to, you know, early, like I thought it was earlier, but March of 2024, leading into the, you know, the election. And I mean, it's just like, you think about the way that the nature of the conversation has evolved. It's pretty amazing, you know, and here we are. I mean, in October of 2025, you know, and none of us could have ever predicted. And it was a great point that we made earlier about just the way that things have changed, how we would have been just completely like, I mean, we would have been dancing in the streets a year ago if the stuff that's happening now happened a year ago. It's really funny how that works. But as always, the trajectory right on course, and things are accelerating really, really, really fast. So really exciting.
Amen.
And kudos to you guys. You're amazing. I love you. And I just want to say thank you to, I think I missed a couple of rants earlier. I might've been Micro Toolmaker. There were a couple others that left rants. I do apologize. I didn't get to them, but I just want to say thank you to everybody for your support. And indeed to Penny Lane, the greatest mod out there. Thank you so much. We'll be back in a couple of weeks. I'll be on NewsTreason with these two fine gentlemen. And of course, I'll be back with the great Mike King on Monday, as will Dave and Mark on Wednesday. So thank you, everybody, for listening. Till the next time, God bless. Godspeed, everybody. Patriot out.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.